Friday edition of BK and Ferrario and a Cardinals and Yankees series opener edition of BK and Ferrario. Welcome in alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario with you today. BK out once again. He'll be back on Monday, and the Cardinals, T-Bone, are back in action tonight. Ooh. It should be. You know what? The Yankees in town, late August baseball, mid-August baseball, I guess I should probably say. Playoff race is probably taking place right now. This should be exciting, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. T-Bone's going to the game, and I don't even think he's looking forward to it.
Tanner.
T-Bone's like, man, Yankees probably could be doing, I guess I'll get a hot dog and maybe some beer or something like that.
Well, there are some positives, but it's nothing about the product from the Cardinals on the field.
No, it's not, because actually on the mound tonight for the Cardinals, there's a guy that's probably pitching for his spot in the rotation. Andre Pallante is on the mound later on tonight for the Cardinals as they open up this series against the New York Yankees. And Andre Pallante has gone through it over these last couple of starts, which I guess is a phrase I could use for three other starting pitchers on this team since that trade deadline has passed. But Andre Pallante specifically, T-Bone, he went from at the beginning of the season somebody who had that upside that looked like it's a perfect 4 or 5 for your rotation moving forward for a team that struggled to have depth in their system, a guy that could go out there and eat innings. It's the perfectly capable pitcher that the Cardinals need. And as the season has progressed, you've seen Michael McGreevy develop into a little bit more. You've seen some of the minor league system work out. Andre Pallante has struggled over these last 6 starts. Less than 30 innings pitched. He's given up 38 hits, 10 walks, 17 strikeouts, and a 7.7 ERA. And the opponents are just slashing the heck out of Andre Pallante. So with him on the mound, T-Bone, I don't think it's his last start this season, but I think the starts are starting to dwindle for him because at the end of the season, I wonder if he's one of these guys that the Cardinals front office, Chaim Bloom specifically, looks at and says, we can do better than this.
Yeah, I think for the final month and a half of the season, you're probably talking about, another 7-ish starts maybe for Andre Pallante, somewhere in that range.
And that's a big maybe if they want to, maybe they get more of Lakey or something like that in there.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think he's going to lose his job this year because they just don't have any internal answers. So you continue to throw him out there. I do not think he is viewed as a lock for the rotation in 2026. I think the guys that fall into that are Sonny Gray. I would say Liberatore's probably a lock for the rotation in 2026, and then Michael McGreevy. And I would say that is it. And you've got Michaelis that comes off the books. Pallante's probably going to be viewed as a favorite for that, but if he continues to struggle like he has, he read off the slash line. He's got an OPS against him at 834. That's what you expect from a 3-hole hitter, right? But he's making everybody look like that. So I think if he continues to have these issues, he's not getting deeper into the games. The Cardinals are been saying publicly, hey, this isn't he's getting up towards his inning totals. They are viewing this as just he's been ineffective. His body is fine. He's just not pitching well like he should be.
Yeah.
If this continues and it continues to be a struggle, he's going to have to be a guy that goes into 2026 having to fight for his job, because I think there are guys that they can bring in. They can bring in, whether it's 2 veterans to try and just backfill that rotation, a couple 1-year, $5 million contracts. You can go with Kyle Leahy and stretch him out. Maybe Quinn Matthews then is able to try and compete for a spot in the rotation. There are a couple different things that they can try. And also Pallante, even though he's had his struggles, still holds some trade value because it's just how much teams value young cost control starters. He's going to get a little bit more expensive, probably going to be about $5 million more bucks next year. Maybe they could look to trade him if they were thinking that, but I don't think they would because they are lacking so much depth. But I think he is the guy that if you're looking at the pitching staff as a whole, he is the number one guy for me that is, okay, you probably are fighting for your job right about now.
Yeah. And I think it's clear to elaborate on this that we're not sitting here acting as if he's not going to be on this team next year. Is there a chance? Maybe. Maybe somebody wants to trade for him and the Cardinals just see it as it might be time to move on from this. But I do think what he's doing is he's pitching for his role, because if this struggle continues, and it's funny how it works because the Cardinals are falling right back into the Fetty Michaelis situation where it's like you can't keep putting this guy out there. And the response should be, well, what else are we supposed to do? There's nothing else in our system to go to. You're not going to stretch Leahy out to be a starter for this team down the stretch. There's nobody that's going to get called up because Quinn Matthews struggled in his last start for Memphis the other night. This is it. He's starting the rest of the way for us. But that role shifts next year because I don't know if they're going to go out there and sign veterans, or maybe they make an acquisition of a pitcher. But Pallante goes from being a 4 or a 5 in a rotation to being a 6 or a 7 in a rotation, or you're just a swing man in the bullpen. You're just what Steven Matz was last year, to where it's not high end. You're coming in, you're eating some innings for the Cardinals. Maybe you get a spot start because you have the ability to, if the Cardinals need it. You become a depth piece for the Cardinals that they're looking to upgrade over, which frankly is the direction the organization should be going, right? Like, you see somebody that's not qualified to be the position you want, you say, we need to find better, you're going to shift into a different role.
Yeah, and I expect that they will add, this is my expectation, there's nothing to like really look at and say this is what they're going to do. I think they're probably going to add at least one veteran starter next year, so they have some options again to where they can, like, this way it holds Quinn Matthews down as the 6th man. He's in the Michael McGreevy role, as I've mentioned previously. And then you have, whether it be Pallante or Leahy, that battles for that 5th starter spot. But I don't think they're going to go into next year with just 3 locked-in starters and say, okay, there's 2 open spots. What do we have? Because if we're being honest, you would have to like really squint very hard to see if there are 2 other starters in the system, and especially if you're looking at Pallante and his struggles continue. So I think they're probably going to do the classic. It's typically a Pirates move. Bring in like an Andrew Heaney, 1 year, $5 million deal. He comes in, takes that 5th spot, and then, okay, Pallante, Kyle Leahy stretched out. You've also got, as we mentioned, Quinn Matthews. You 3, there's 1 spot. Somebody take it. Yeah. And the only way for Pallante to really lock in himself into that future conversation for 2026 is to find a way to figure this out in the final, whatever it is, 5 to 7 starts that he's got remaining.
Yeah, and that's also why it has been so important this year, guys, to get that extended evaluation of Pallante, because we're no longer talking about a small sample size, right? No, rather, he has 43 starts at the major league level under his belt over the past 2 seasons. And also, when I think about, to your point, Alex, who else is actually there waiting in the wings? You're not going to turn to anybody else even remotely close at the AAA level. So you basically ride it out for all intents and purposes over the course of the next few weeks. And that's what makes some of these outliers that we've seen over the last few weeks. A couple of weeks ago, you think about that outing versus Miami, in which he is extremely sharp. He's keeping the ball down, and more important than anything else, he is inducing those ground balls. This season, the hard contact rate, barreling it up from the opposition, has been strikingly higher. I was actually surprised at the number of walks not being up there, but clearly now you're looking at somebody, if you had a skewed perspective last season, if you thought, okay, maybe this guy in time can evaluate, can progress into a middle of the rotation type of guy, I think now you have a much clearer picture and portrait of what he could be, and that's not the worst thing in the world. You're looking to backfill or be able to introduce a guy at the back end of the rotation next year. It would be him rather than a Michaelis, but we'll see what transpires the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the time of the year, and I know nobody wants to hear it because it's just miserable right now. I mean, this is the part that you're getting your answers on. This is at least the most exciting part of the rest of the season, is finding out, like, how does this guy fit into the jigsaw puzzle that is this Cardinals roster? And the good news for the Cardinals is these guys have the rest of the season to figure it out. I think if you were to ask the front office on Truth Serum, they'd tell you, yeah, we know what Andre Pallante is, and we're looking to upgrade over it. The real task for the team is going to be, can you upgrade over it? Because internally, there's nothing else here. TK Roby's hurt. Quinn Matthews is probably going to struggle a little bit. So you are probably backfilling with free agents, or you're making moves and trying to load up on that pitching style of things. And then Andre Pallante becomes an asset in the middle of the season once you start to really kind of hit that wall for certain players.
Yeah, if you look at their roster going into next year, to your point, of like, you got to look at, like, okay, what do you have internally before you then start to look externally? Like, let's just run through this real quick on guys that could potentially be starters for the Cardinals in 2026.
Ooh, this is going to make people sad.
Without making a move. I know. I'm ready to ruin everybody's
You ready to ruin a Friday, eh?
Sonny Gray, he's fine.
Yeah, there you go. That's an ace caliber pitcher.
Yeah, ace stuff. I don't know,
just not in July.
Yeah. Oh, when it's hot.
Hot and wet.
His hands wet.
Not out. Not out.
So Sonny Gray.
Yep.
Michael McGreevy.
Yep.
Matthew Liberatore.
Yep.
Andre Pallante. Maybe Kyle Leahy.
Yeah.
Maybe Quinn Matthews.
And that's
end of
about it. Because somebody on our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646 said, what happened to Tink Hence? Tink Hence has pitched 10 2/3 innings in Double-A.
He's hurt again.
Yeah. I mean, I can't rely on this anymore. He's hurt. TK Roby, he's out. He's out for the year with Tommy John surgery. And then beyond that,
Cooper Jerpy, Tommy John,
Liam,
Sam Roberts, say Tommy John.
Yeah, because he's been out for a while.
Yeah.
And Liam Doyle might be an option, but my guess is you're probably talking about middle of the season rather than the early portion of the season.
True best case scenario.
Yeah. You just named 6 pitchers.
Yeah.
That's where this team is at, and it's why I do think Andre Pallante is still a fascinating piece. It's just what his role truly comes into. We also got this one from the never-ending wipe on our Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, I'm going to the game tonight. I'm most excited to see Paul Goldschmidt. So if you missed it, it was kind of in doubt if Paul Goldschmidt was going to be playing because he injured his knee, I believe it was, in the previous game that they played with the Yankees, and it looked like he was going to be out. He's traveling with the Yankees, according to the New York Post, but they said the IL stint is still not out of the question. I know he talked with the media a couple of days ago and said that it's nothing he believes is long-term. For Cardinals fans, I think they're hoping Paul Goldschmidt could play because it's one of the more exciting features to go to the ballpark tonight for this series. And I do find him fascinating, T-Bone, because we've had plenty of conversations about Paul Goldschmidt's time in St. Louis. Although it was short, you still had that MVP-esque season, and when he was acquired, there was tons of excitement around because they finally went out there and found that bat that they were talking about. But how do Cardinals fans remember Paul Goldschmidt's era? Because although it was an exciting move and he did have that MVP-type season, I personally feel like there's a lot of disappointment when you hear Paul Goldschmidt's name. Not with Paul Goldschmidt himself, but more so the era, because the team never capitalized on the Paul Goldschmidt era.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that because you think of that Paul Goldschmidt run. You had Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, and you won, one playoff series? And that was in 2019 when they beat the Braves in 5 games, but they get swept out of the NLCS. They lose in 3 games in 2020 in the pandemic year to the Padres. 2021, it took them an incredible run to get there only to lose in the game. And then 22, they get knocked out in the playoffs in the wild card run against the Phillies. And that year, he had the MVP. I think it's going to be viewed as a disappointing year. The one thing I hope for Paul Goldschmidt, I think he's going to be a Cardinals Hall of Famer. There's no question in my mind there. But I hope it doesn't become like a forgettable MVP season. Yeah. Because you think back to that 2022 season for Paul Goldschmidt, I mean, the slash line in itself, incredible. 317, 404, 578, 981 OPS. Ends up winning the MVP. But you think of that 2022 season, what's the first thought that comes to mind? Albert Pujols. Yeah. What a run. Albert finds his prime, hits 700 career home runs, and it just goes kind of forgotten.
Well, and you also forget that Nolan Arenado was second in voting that year?
Third or fourth, something like that.
You had 2 guys who were top 3 in voting for MVP.
And we always talk about Albert because what Albert did was it was truly incredible considering how bad he started off that season. I just hope it doesn't go forgotten how great that 2022 season was for Paul Goldschmidt. And also the fact of the matter is, man, the first 4 years here, he finished top 20 in MVP voting in all of those years. Finishes 20th in 2019, 15th in 2020, 6th in 2021, and then wins it in 2022. I mean, he had an incredible first 4 years. Honestly, first 5 years. It was really just that last year where things kind of fell apart. And it's kind of continued the same way in New York. He can't hit right-handed pitching now, but he demolishes lefties.
I'm getting lit up on our chat on both YouTube and the text line. I didn't mean to say MVP-esque season. He had an MVP season. I meant MVP-esque time in St. Louis because, like Tebow mentioned, you had a top 5 finish, or it was 6th place that he got.
6th place.
And then he wins it. And then, of course, the back end of it didn't look as good. But still, an MVP season is what people remember. It sucks for Paul Goldschmidt, but that's kind of the line that I fall into, that it was I feel bad. It was a forgettable MVP season because it should have been something you looked at and said that was the moment that the Cardinals kind of went back in the direction we all assumed they were going to get to, winning and having a shot at a World Series. But the MVP crumbled in the playoffs. Now, I know it was a small sample size, but he still didn't perform, just like Nolan Arenado didn't perform. The team also did not provide the right weapons around them. So it does not take away from an MVP season. He should be celebrated for that, and I hope it's not forgotten. But unfortunately, to me, it is, because that was an era that felt like it shouldn't fall through the cracks, and it absolutely will, because the Cardinals went into the direction they're in now, which is the tank, versus being at least something that still competed for playoff spots.
And honestly, to pull from the conversation yesterday, does it not in many ways, by no means are you talking about statistics, not when they are along those particular lines, they're hollow, but It's differentiating between superstar mode, a la an Albert Pujols, and somebody who was merely, you could argue, a star. Because how many different seasons, obviously, a number of them, did Goldschmidt have at that level? But the lack of overall playoff success, that is always going to be associated with him, and in turn does affect the legacy of superstar versus a mere star, kind of like Matt Carpenter to an extent.
So we'll find out a little bit later on if Paul Goldschmidt will play at Busch Stadium tonight, but he is traveling with the Yankees. But the Cardinals and Yankees open up their weekend series tonight with Andre Pallante going up against Luis Gil for the New York Yankees. We got this one from Harrison's brother Master in all caps. I won't yell at T-Bone, but it says, nobody cares about the bleeping Cardinals. Well, let's talk about the Blues then. Because on the other side, we are going to get into the Blues start to the season. It's less than a month or a little over a month away, I believe. A month and a half, 55 days, I think is what it was earlier today that Mike Ryder put out there, the Colton Parayko graphic. But the thing about the Blues in the last couple of years has been the slow start to the season, and it plagued them late into the season. How do they avoid that this year? And is there something about the Blues that strikes fear into their opponents? We'll get to that next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So with the Blues season opening up 55 days away, the hype is starting to get real. We had Steve out on the Last Minute Blues podcast a couple of days ago, which you can check out over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, where we are live right now with BK and Ferrario. Our YouTube cam's brought to you by the Air Alliance team. You can check us out in the Graveyard Chat. Also, the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. I was listening to a podcast on the way in from Empty Netters that had Jim Montgomery on, and he was talking about the excitement for the season and how hopefully you get the opportunity to carry over what they did at the end of the season. And it got T-Bone thinking, because the last couple of years for the Blues, they've missed the playoffs. Last year was the first year they've been in what, 3 seasons, I believe it was, 4 seasons. And the thing that has plagued the Blues over these last few years of missing the postseason and almost plagued them last year was starting out slow in the first month and a half of the season. If you go back the last 3 years, the 2022-2023 season, the Blues were 11-10, sitting in 18th place in the National Hockey League after Thanksgiving. 2 years ago, they were 11-8-1, 14th in the NHL after Thanksgiving, and then they were 9-12-1 this past season after Thanksgiving.
And two of those, the last 2 years led to coach firings.
Yes, and it's a narrative that Joe Vitale has always talked about on the broadcasts with me of like, if you are above 500 after Thanksgiving, you give yourself a shot. But if you're below 500 or you're right around 500, it's an uphill battle to get in. And 2 of those 3 years, they required a massive winning streak to put them back into the conversation of making the playoffs. And putting yourself in a better position is going to be the goal at the start of the season. And T-Bone, to me, there's an underlying narrative for those early season woes, and it was lack of offense. Like if you look at 3 years ago, the Blues were 21st in the NHL, averaging about 2.9 goals per game. 2 years ago, they were 18th. They were averaging 2.95 goals per game. And then last year, they were middle of the pack, averaging around 2.97. But we all remember the talk about, man, where is the offense? We're supposed to be getting excited for these guys, and you're starting out slow. There's no opportunities. There's no sustained zone time. And it just completely wiped away any optimism for the Blues. To me, that's the key. You want to start the season off hot. You want to carry over what you did last year and get the excitement in October and November. Put yourself in a position to push for a top 3 spot. It all starts with your offense. I think goaltending always struggles early on because it's different from training camp, preseason versus the start of the regular season. I think your defense is starting out slow, but they get the knack of it pretty quick. The offense is what drives it because that's how you put yourself into position to succeed. And in the Central, it's going to take a lot of offense for how good some of these teams are.
Yeah, we're on the same page in terms of how they can avoid the slow start because I was kind of right in line with what you're saying there. Because for me, it was the lack of offense led to it, but it was the constant of kind of the juggling of the lines. Remember last year there was I think it was the Robert Thomas quote, if I remember correctly, of, yeah, like our lines haven't been together. It's hard for us to gain chemistry. Yeah. It's hard for me to figure out where guys are.
And juggling around.
They were juggling around constantly, so it took them forever to finally build the chemistry. When you think about what led to the Blues going on the run was, okay, Cairo and Holloway finally built up chemistry on that second line, and they were able to take off. Thomas had Buchnevich on his line. They kind of started to figure things out. The WTF line becomes the WTF line because they finally get that chemistry and know where everyone's going to be. Now, the third line was lacking, but like they still were solid enough for you. And then you think back to that 22-23 season where they end up starting 3-0, losing 8 in a row, becoming 3-8, and eventually they end up selling off at the trade deadline. What was the biggest issue that year? They couldn't find somebody to be on the Ryan O'Reilly and Perron line. They had Josh Levo up there.
Hey, Josh Levo had a great couple of months.
Yeah, no, not really. No, didn't get him another NHL job after that.
No, it didn't actually. I think he's in Germany right now.
But like that's their biggest problem is they take. I don't want to say they take too long, but it is a very slow process in figuring out, okay, here's just one line for us to figure out. Like you go back to last year, it took them a while to figure out, okay, who's going to be on that top line with Thomas and Buchnevich, and they eventually settled in on Neighbors kind of slotting in there. But they were kind of juggling that back and forth. Cairo was up there. They split up Thomas and Buch for a while. That's going to be the biggest key. How long does it take you to kind of figure out, okay, here's what line 1 is, here's what line 2 is, and hopefully once you get that settled in, then you can kind of do the finer kind of twiddling of the knobs to really figure things out. But how quickly can you get there? And because this team was together, got to the playoffs, your top 2 lines haven't really been shaken up from any additions. In theory, I think they should be able to get there a lot faster, and that should help them prevent them from falling into this slow start that's ailed them the last 3 years.
Yeah, my handy-dandy notebook that I keep for the Blue seasons, I went back and looked at the top line combination. So last season, the top line combination that you started with was Brandon Saad, Robert Thomas, and Dylan Holloway.
Oh, gosh. If you gave me 5 guesses, I was not going to guess Brandon Saad. One, because I forgot he was a Blue.
Yep, because Pavel Buchnevich was your second line center playing with Jordan Kyrou. That was the second line. Now, 2 years ago, like you mentioned, they were juggling all kinds of stuff. It was Robert Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich, and Jake Neighbors was up there. So they were testing that one out. And then 3 years ago, you mentioned the Josh Levo experiment, trying to figure things out. So they have gone through it. And by the way, my numbers were incorrect. I went back and looked at this. Last year, right after Thanksgiving on Black Friday, they had 2.5 goals scored per game. That was the fourth fewest in the National Hockey League. The only teams that scored fewer than them were Chicago, Nashville, and Boston, surprisingly. 2 years ago, they were 23rd at 2.89. So they were bottom 10 in the National Hockey League the last 2 seasons in terms of goals all the way up to Black Friday.
And the other thing that hurt them in this stretch is they didn't have a good power play either.
Yes.
If you're not going to be good at 5-on-5, well, then that power play better be the thing that kind of helps make up for the lack of 5-on-5 offense. And they didn't have that either for the last 2 years. Last year, they kind of figured things out. They went on that hot stretch once Jim Montgomery got here. But that was another thing. They were one of the worst power plays and worst penalty kills early on in the season last year. That's the other thing this season. Will the power play be able to get to that next level? I think it should be able to. Snugger's got that shot.
Yeah.
They were able to figure it out in the second half of last season, which helped them go on that run. But if they do get off to kind of a sluggish start, whether it be an injury or for whatever reason, guys just don't get going right off the bat at the start of the season, okay, it's not great, it's not ideal, but you can make up for a lack of 5-on-5 offense if the power play can kind of carry you until guys start to find their rhythm offensively at 5-on-5.
And you do have some weapons that could be dangerous in terms of Snuggerud. Now that you've got Bukestad, you've got Suter, it takes the Sunquists off the power play that you were using last year or some of those other guys. All right, the other one that I wanted to get to, we didn't get to this yesterday. I was listening to a podcast on the Dallas Stars. They're going through and they're interviewing every team throughout the National Hockey League, and they're asking them one question. They're saying, what about the Dallas Stars strikes fear into your team? And so it got me thinking, because I didn't listen to the episode about the Blues. I don't know if they've gotten to the Blues one yet. But is there an element of the Blues that should or will strike fear into the opposition? Because I have one that I think truly will, but it's not going to show itself until about November, and it's the goaltending tandem.
And what's coming in November?
Well, and the reason I say not till November is because I think a lot of people assume Jordan Binnington is not a good regular season goaltender, which, look, there are plenty of stats that can back that up. I will defend it until I'm dead that Jordan Binnington is a hell of a regular season goalie. It's just the teams have been bad in front of him. But the reason I think you're not going to really see it until November is because Joel Hofer's still a question. I think a lot of people look at Hofer as he's just a backup and you won't see him. I think it's going to be more Hofer than Binnington early on in the season because of what this schedule is going to be and how constricted it's going to be. And the element that I don't believe many teams, if any teams in the Western Conference have, is 2 goaltenders that can play 41 games and actually be a threat to you. So to me, what other teams are going to be talking about this season is Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer, and it's a fear that I'm not sure other teams have, especially in the Western Conference.
I like that one. I was debating between 2 on this, and I think I'm going to settle in on is the speed and dynamic goal scoring of the Blues' top 6 wingers. Yeah. Because if you get Buchnevich back to the previous level that he was at the first year that he got here, I mean, he's been a 25-plus goal scorer in the first 3, I think it was the first 3 or 4 years that he's been here. You then add in Jimmy Snuggerud, who we talked about yesterday. If that lethal shot comes in and is right away a 25-plus goal scorer, and then I add in by the way, that was just my top line. Now here comes our second line out with Dylan Holloway, who put together an incredible season. Jordan Kyrou, who had another incredible season, could be a 40-plus goal scorer. I could see where teams are fearful of the wingers and the speed that those guys can bring to the St. Louis Blues. The other one I debated, but I decided that to settle in on the wingers was the offensive punch from the defenseman. Yeah. Last year...
That's a good one.
Last year you have Fowler, who comes in and in 51 games puts up 36 points, which was the same amount as Colton Parayko. Falk with 32 points. Broberg had that incredible run at the beginning of the year, finished at 29 points. Maybe he has another level to his game. And then you add in Logan Mailloux, who they brought in as like the third pair. And if he's able to bring offensive upside like Tyler Tucker did, as we saw him in the second half of the season, I can see where teams then have to really game plan for the Blues of, okay, now you've got these elite wingers in the top 6, an elite centerman in Robert Thomas. Oh, by the way, all the defensemen are up in the rush, and it's just constantly coming at us in waves from not just the forwards, but also the defensemen.
Well, and this is a bold prediction that we'll talk more about once we get closer to training camp. I think Logan Mailloux could have the start to the season that Philip Broberg had last year in terms of offense, where you're like, oh, hot damn, where'd this come from? Tyler Tucker provided a lot of offense in the postseason before he got injured. I do think that's a really good one that could strike some fear, and I'd be curious of what it looks like at the beginning of the season. We got this one from the 618. Ferrario, how much concern should the Blues be? How much fear should the Blues have that their 6-on-5 defense didn't improve? That could be a fear factor still. I personally put myself under the belief that Jim Montgomery is a hell of a coach. He realized what hurt them last year. It knocked them out of the playoffs, what should have been going to the second round. That will be fixed at some point in the season, and we'll have to wait to find out as the season officially moves along. He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we have Ask Us Anything, where you send us a question. We will answer 314-399-9646. You can throw anything at us. We'll get to that in about 15. But coming up next, we'll move over to college football, because when you look at the top 10, top 15 teams in college football, according to the AP poll, you see a lot of SEC and a lot of Big Ten. Is there a conference that's significantly better than the other? And where's the best top tier of those teams? We'll discuss that and Luke Altmaier coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Now at 101ESPN.com.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN tomorrow. Mets and Mariners. First pitch at 3:10. Then Sunday it's Game 2. First pitch at 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Yankees limping into the Lou. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Despite Aaron Judge's best efforts, New York has hit a wall entering tonight's series opener against St. Louis. First pitch set for 7:15 downtown. Number 99's troops facing Andre Pallante, having lost 8 of their past 12 games. STL occupying 4th place in El Central-wise. Elsewhere today, division-leading Milwaukee visits Cincinnati. Late afternoon start at Great American Ballpark. 2 hours from now, Chicago will host Pittsburgh. Tomorrow, 101 ESPN carries Mariners Mets shortly after 3 p.m. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get to ask us anything on the other side. You send us your questions, 314-399-9646. That's our Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube chat, The Graveyard, over on our channel at 101 ESPN STL. So we've talked a lot about the top 25 rankings and kind of where teams are at according to the AP poll. And the anticipation of the season, I've mentioned it a couple of times with you and BK T-Bone, that this feels as wide open of college football has been in a long time. Now, there's a lot of really great teams. I just don't see a superior team. But sifting through that top 25 and isolating it to like the top 10, top 15, you got a pretty even amount of SEC versus Big Ten teams. But the question that I keep asking, and that I know we were asking in the office, is there a side of the conferences that have the best top tier of those teams? Because again, it doesn't feel like one side is significantly better than the other, because as much as you look at the SEC, and in the past it's always Georgia and Alabama, you add in Texas with this one, you've also got Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon, you've got Illinois, you've got Michigan. Like, you've got a lot of similarities between the two, which is why I kind of find the season so exciting, because there's not a one side versus the other in terms of this is the best conference versus the other side.
Yeah, I think when we look at the Big Ten versus the SEC, I think the SEC is going to be the deeper conference, and I think they will eventually end up settling in on being the conference that has the best of the top-tier teams. I think unlike in previous seasons where it had been, hey, the SEC is deep, don't know if there's an elite team there, maybe outside of like Georgia when they were running on that title run. But then you had the Big Ten, and it was, yeah, Big Ten not deep, but like they've got three pretty solid teams, right? You've got Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Those three have been the big dogs carrying the conference for a while. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to see that this year. I think the Big Ten's going to have good teams. You know, they'll probably get their 3 or 4 teams into the college football playoff. But it's tough to look at the Big Ten and say, okay, is Ohio State going to be elite? Maybe, but I don't know because of the quarterback situation. Yeah. Same with Oregon. Oregon's got to kind of sort through and find their quarterback. Illinois, Indiana. Illinois' got their quarterback that's returning, but I don't know that he can get them to being an elite program. Or let me rephrase that. They can't get to being an elite program. Same with Indiana. But I look at the SEC and I go, holy cow, this is what we've talked about, what's going to make the conference so great this year. Sure, there are some teams like Alabama, got to figure out what they've got at the quarterback position since they lost Jalen Milroe. Same with why am I drawing a blank? They disappeared on
Georgia?
me. Georgia, thank you. The Bulldogs. They had the kid that kind of played when Carson Beck got hurt in the playoff. He didn't look all that impressive.
No, he looked scared.
Yeah. I think that was a pretty good word to describe him in the playoff. I can't blame him, honestly, though.
No, God, no.
But then you look at some of the quarterbacks that are returning, right? DJ Lagway, he stays healthy, and he takes his game to another level. All right, now you're talking about an elite quarterback on a team that could lift the Gators up in towards an elite category. Same with LSU with their quarterback that's returning. You've also got the Gamecocks in South Carolina that got their guy coming back. There are a couple quarterbacks. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this guy by the name of Manning. Maybe you've heard of him, Arch Manning, who, even when we saw him, he looked impressive to me to where I think he's going to be pretty good this year. Mm-hmm. I think the SEC is going to be viewed as the deeper conference and the conference that has the more superior teams in it.
So much of that has to do with the spot that runs everything, right? The position that dictates everything in this game, and that would be quarterback. Because, Tanner, I do agree with you when you're talking about the cream of the crop in each of these conferences. You can make the argument that among the heavyweights, the Big Ten compares favorably with the SEC. Yes, I do think that you can take that trio specifically of OSU as well as Penn State and Oregon and put it up against a Texas, Georgia, Alabama 3-pack and say, okay, pretty comparable, all right? Especially when you're thinking about Texas. I said yesterday, it's my estimation at least, that Texas feels elevated from the rest of the SEC. I don't agree with that, specifically when you're talking about having to replace 4 of your starting offensive linemen. But the depth at the signal caller spot, that's what does it for me. And it's no coincidence, guys, that in the preseason coaches poll, 9 of the top 25 teams reside where? In the SEC, because the singular talent at that position at quarterback. LSU, it's kind of become a laughing stock in recent years, having lost 3 season openers in a row, right, under Brian Kelly. But you have arguably the most dependable, reliable quarterback coming back in Garrett Nussmeier. And you want to talk about upside? You want to talk about potential and growth? How about South Carolina, which came within a hair of qualifying for the CFP last season? The mammoth expectations there for Lenore Sellers, DJ Lagway, bringing the hype factor as well. So from top to bottom, that second tier specifically, that's where the SEC has the ability, Alex, long-term to be leaps and bounds beyond what the Big Ten could provide.
Yeah, I think if you're asking me which conference is better, I'm with both of you guys. The SEC is it, and it's just because of guaranteed quarterback play. Like, there's just a lot of question marks for some teams. Now, Ohio State's a wide receiver factory, as we've mentioned in the past, so they'll be fine. I'll figure that out. Penn State's bringing back the quarterback that I know a lot of people are excited about. Oregon is the one that's probably the biggest mystery right now when you lose Dylan Gabriel, which gets me to Illinois. Because, T-Bone, you mentioned something yesterday we didn't get to, but when you look at the Big Ten and their quarterback play, like Luke Altmaier returning is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten this season. He had an incredible season last year, which is why Illinois is ranked so high. Does he need to be a top 10 quarterback this season in college football to help Illinois get to the playoffs? Because as great as he was last year, it feels like for Illinois to take that next step for how deep the SEC is, you're going to have to be better, which is the part that I guess I'm the biggest concern over, because you're losing some playmakers with Luke Altmaier this year.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll have to be top 10, but I think top 25 quarterback play is required from Luke Altmaier. And the reason that I say top 25 is because I think he's probably going to have to put together the season Brady Cook had in 2023.
Oh, okay.
The year where they got to, the Cotton Bowl, when they beat Ohio State's fourth stringers. I think he's got to do that, where Brady Cook in 2023 threw for over 3,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, ran for 319 yards, and was able to rush for 8 touchdowns as well. Altmaier, not as much of a rushing quarterback as Brady Cook was, but he still can use his legs a little bit when need be. He rushed for 4 touchdowns last year and 217 yards. I think he's going to have to do that. I think he's going to have to take his game up towards that next level, towards what Brady Cook was, if they're going to be a team that gets to the college football playoff, because I don't know if I trust their running game. You can get away with not having a top-tier quarterback and get to the college football playoff if you have a great running game. Think back to those Ohio State teams that had Zeke Elliott on it, right? They had a decent quarterback in those years, but Elliott was a stud, man. I mean, that guy was unbelievable running in the backfield. You need to have a guy like that if you don't have great quarterback play, if you've just got fine QB play, or you have to have an elite defense. And I don't know that they're going to have an elite defense. I think it's a good defense. I don't think they're going to have an elite running game. I think it's going to be a fine running game. They need Altmaier to take that next step. And if he does, it's going to be very impressive, considering he lost his best weapon coming into this season as Pat Bryant went to the NFL.
Precisely. Bryant not having that vertical threat. You're going to have to figure it out a bit as you go in that department for the Illini. But that's why I also do fear a little bit, maybe in the early portion of the schedule, Tanner, when you're evaluating and assessing this offense as a whole. I think in a lot of ways, you want to have a team that mirrors the Missouri setup from 2023, especially on the defensive side of the football. You want to have that Bielema brand of physicality. But that team in Columbia last season, how many Mizzou fans, BK himself, I'm sure, lamenting the departure of Cody Schrader. He was on another level as the running back, and you know that you already have a transfer in McCray. If Altmaier is able to elevate, just to what degree? Because I've been ruminating on this over the last 24 or so hours. I think he has to really put himself at a level beyond that which Cook was able to reach in 23, and it's going to be markedly harder when you don't have that obvious target, or those obvious targets, a la Theo Weiss, a la Luther Burden III. We'll have to see who rises up.
Well, we've already gotten our Bradford word of the day, ruminating over.
It's been a while.
I had to Google it because I don't know what the hell ruminating means.
Felt great. Well,
find a way to put that in your dictionary later on today, ladies and gentlemen. Ruminating over. Bradford will have more of those. If you've got questions for us, it's time for Ask Us Anything on the other side. You send us any question you want. We'll get to those coming up next. 314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. ESPN has your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the 2025 SMX World Championship Playoffs. Saturday, September 13th at the Dome at America's Center. The Dome at America's Center will see playoff supercross racing for the first time, featuring the premier riders in the world putting it all on the line for the World Championship title.
Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live. Get all the info and register to score that free 4-pack of tickets for the 2025 SMX World Championship Playoffs. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
Did you guys say the Air Comfort Service text line in the graveyard chats? Pretty positive today, pretty lively.
Oh, yeah, they're feeling it today. Spicy.
We've already gotten a dork sent one of our way. One has said T-Bone needs to go.
Yeah, someone said that Mizzou and Ohio State had both equal amount of stars not playing that Cotton Bowl game 2 years ago. Mizzou had their full starting offense. What are we talking about?
First of all, anytime you call somebody a dork because they use words you don't understand, that actually just shows more on you than it does the person that's using those words. I personally find those words fascinating.
Alex, I just want you to matriculate that ball down the field. Let's do it.
I actually know matriculate, and it's because Bradford's used it before. But
give us a new word, Bradford.
Give us a new one, Bradford. Find it deeper in the thesaurus. Well, it is Ask Us Anything. You send us any question you've got with a little twang to it, and we'll get to it here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube chat, The Graveyard, over at 101 ESPN STL. I've gotten a ton of these since we did college football talk this past segment and did not bring up Michigan. Fellas, what is your thoughts on the penalties for Michigan from NCAA? Now, if you've missed this, I've seen a lot of people that are reacting as it's a slap on the wrist for Michigan after the basically stealing of the calls, standing on the sideline for Michigan. So this is kind of a quick rundown of what took place, and then I want your guys' thoughts. 4 years of probation for Michigan, financial penalties. The big ones here are $50,000 fine plus 10% of the budget for the football program. Also a fine equivalent to the cost of 10% of the scholarships awarded for this upcoming season, and a 25% reduction in football official visits for the upcoming season. 14-week probation on recruiting communications, and then they had penalties towards Connor Stallions, Jim Harbaugh, Denard Robinson, and Sharon Moore. So kind of a quick run through of what the penalties are for Michigan. T-Bone, Bradford, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by what we saw. It still feels like a slap on the wrist, but I don't know how you could have really hammered home a point here because, okay, so you suspended Moore another game on the 2 that he's already kind of Michigan self-imposed. Okay, so you said Harbaugh's got to go through a process where he's in front of a committee if he gets hired in the next 10 years. Newsflash, everyone. Harbaugh's not coming back to college football, probably.
Big deal.
Stallions, I don't think was going to be back in college football either way because of this.
Yeah.
And the whole, some people are like, well, they should have to vacate the championship. What are you going to,
That doesn't matter.
This isn't Men in Black. You're not going to have a little flashy thing and make me forget about it.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, you know what? Harbaugh cheated. They caught him. What did he do? He ran to the NFL. The punishment was quote unquote was Harbaugh's out of college football.
Yeah,
and he's coaching the NFL. I don't know what they could have done. It definitely feels like a slap on the wrist. NCAA is one of the weakest organizations in everything.
I've seen a lot of people say, well, you should have suspended him from playoffs for a couple of years, and how realistic is that? Because NCAA makes money off of something like that. So
and you don't want to block a team like Michigan from getting in.
Yeah.
I mean, if there is one thing they probably should have done, it is probably that. But even then, you're only doing that for what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2. Because isn't that what Mizzou went through? Wasn't it a 2-year?
I think it was 2 years.
Probation, right? For the playoffs
after the self-imposed stuff as well.
Yeah,
that's the primary sticking point here, guys, or one that really wasn't considered with any legitimacy, any potential postseason ban. That's why, Tanner, it feels so equivalent to a slap on the wrist because there is no postseason ban. It's not as if you're vacating that national title. Does anybody among the fan base, the faithful there in Ann Arbor, have any qualms about this? Do you care whatsoever? You won the national title. The NCAA chief at present, Charlie Baker, says, we feel as if that was legit. Nobody cares at this point. Let's go. Move forward.
I love Dennis Dodd. He's one of my favorite guys who covers college football, and I know he's retired now, but boy, he was firing once this stuff came out. He tweeted out saying, breaking, Michigan athletics find the equivalent of 0.001117% of the school's endowment, which is $17.9 billion. He said, moving on. And then he said, okay, Michigan fans, was it worth it? Basically $20 million in exchange for the school's first nanny in 26 years. I think I know your answer. Fantastic stuff. But that's where we're at. Wiping away the championship, acting as if people are going to forget about it, is a joke.
Please.
So the biggest thing you could have done was penalize them from the playoffs. That wasn't going to happen. So welcome to what the punishment was from the NCAA. All right, let's get to this one from the 314. Guys, do you think Mason McTavish is actually available, and do the Blues have enough to trade for him without sending players on the NHL roster? For those that don't know, Mason McTavish is a young centerman with the Anaheim Ducks. He's been in the rumors for the last couple of months because he's not happy with Anaheim. He's not happy with his role. He's an RFA. He wants to get traded. No, I don't think, one, he's going to get traded. I don't think he's going to get offer sheeted. And two, the Blues don't need him. I know that seems crazy to say because we spent almost all offseason talking about going after and finding a number 2 centerman for this team. You've got Pius Suter now. You've got Braden Shen for the next 2 years of Suter. You've got Dvorsky who's developing. You don't need this. You're fine in that front. I'm not trading from my roster to go get somebody that's already filled by Pius Suter. I know he's younger, but there's still a lot of question marks with him. And plus, yeah, it's going to cost you something off of your NHL roster because Joel Quenneville's there now. Anaheim wants to compete. You're not acquiring an NHL centerman for a AHL winger. So, no, I don't think there's any interest on either side for this one to go down.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it makes sense for the Blues. Sure, he's a younger centerman. The Blues are hoping Dvorsky becomes that. And they've got their stopgaps in place between Braden Shen and Pius Suter, as you mentioned. They've upgraded their center spot. They don't need to go out there and give up capital to go acquire McTavish. I just don't think he makes sense for them where they're at right now. If they hadn't signed Suter and maybe they were losing faith in Dvorsky becoming that number 2 centerman, then that's how you get to the spot where maybe they'd have to make that move.
From the 314, guys, with one of the best offensive lines in the country, does Notre Dame finally get it done this season? That's from Bird's Nest.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I was going to say, we just talked about how dominant the SEC and Big Ten are. It's hard for me to believe that Notre Dame had their year last year, and I just don't know if they can outdo what they did last season.
It almost seems obligatory that you will run it back to the CFP with this roster. I do love, if we were talking about college football coaching tiers and rankings, I think that Marcus Freeman is certainly a high riser in that capacity. I do think you have some initial questions, though, about being able to replace what Riley Leonard did for you at the QB spot. Heck, he essentially ran for everything and then some in the first half of that national championship game. It's interesting that you do have so many of these high-profile programs, Tanner, with legitimate questions at the quarterback spot entering the season. Notre Dame's going to figure it out. It's phenomenal defense, too. But I would stop short of saying, going all the way back to the national title, too.
Yeah, it's the quarterback play. That's the number one concern for me. The O-line is great, and that can help develop a younger quarterback. But I don't know if you're going to see a quarterback come into Notre Dame and get them to that spot when there's already great quarterback play for the other top-tier programs.
Let's get to a couple of other these on the Air Comfort Service text line as it's Ask Us Anything here on BK and Ferrario from the 636. Guys, when the Royals build a new stadium, do you think they could host a Winter Classic in KC? Perhaps the Blues play a team like the Avalanche or the Predators. I don't think the NHL would do that because I don't know if I'm wrong on this one, but the Winter Classic are typically played in cities that have NHL teams.
Yeah, the only one that I can think of that wasn't was Lake Tahoe, but that was,
and that was just
the pandemic.
Yeah, and it was a big, we're playing on a freaking lake.
Yeah.
For that. And by the way, I think that was a disaster, too, when they tried to do it, because wasn't it super hot out and they weren't able to get the game off?
The sun was deflecting off the lake and heating the ice.
They delayed it and it went wrong. They will never do that one again.
I don't think it's the worst idea in the world, though. I actually do kind of like it because I think the Winter Classic has lost some of its luster. Now, they're doing something interesting this year. I think they're going to Florida, if I'm not mistaken, for the Winter Classic. Okay, that's different. They've not done that.
That one's going to be a disaster, too.
Probably, but they haven't done that. They haven't done really in warm places. They've always done the Winter Classic kind of in your colder environments like Minnesota when the Blues were in it, here in St. Louis in the winter. KC wouldn't be a bad one just because it is different. You put it in a place that doesn't have a team. You get 2 teams that are close to it. Becomes more of a draw because it's just slightly different because right now they're having a tough time of going to the same places.
Yeah.
Like they'd already
gotta
been
come
to
up with
Wrigley
new
Field.
stuff.
Yeah, so you got to come up with something new to keep it kind of fresh. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to potentially send one to Kansas City.
I'm on board with it because you already have these spin-offs, right? You have the Stadium Series, you have the Heritage Classic. You're trying to constantly reinvent, basically, and expand on the original formula. That doesn't mean that you're going to capture the same kind of luster that you had originally, but I don't think there's any harm whatsoever in considering these other markets. If the NHL, if you are committed to actually partaking in all of these events and spinning them off, why not?
Got a couple more we'll get to from the 314 guys. Have you heard the conversation of Bernie Miklas's take on the Cardinals rebuild? I think he nailed it. Basically, the Cardinals won't be going after MLB players this offseason, but going after AAA players. Does that surprise anyone? Like, I would hope that they can acquire a major league talent if they move guys like Donovan or Nootbaar or Gorman, but I don't know what their value is in the market. And frankly, if you're the Cardinals, you're not competing next year. They should be targeting, or it's probably the better path to target, younger guys that are in AAA that haven't made that leap yet, so that you still have that potential to develop them into a star rather than get a guy who's already at the major league level that you kind of know who they are.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if they even target that close to the big leagues.
You think lower than AAA?
Offseason. Yeah, I mean, look at what they did at the trade deadline, right? They decided to settle on the Baez kid who is in high A. I think the two pitchers they got in that deal are in high A as well. The only guy that they got that was close to the big leagues was Blaze Jordan. Mm-hmm. He's the only guy that's in AAA. I think everybody else is down in Peoria right now that they acquired at the trade deadline. That, to me, was a clear signal of, if we're going to be acquiring talent, we are going to try and build a new wave of position players / pitchers that are starting at the high A level and are about 3 to 4 years away. They could do AAA players if they want to. They could also do major league talent if they want to package some of the pieces they have to go out there and acquire, whether it be like a Joe Ryan type starter or a position player that is maybe 30% above league average that might become available this offseason. They can do that because they have a lot of good complementary pieces that teams will be looking for. It's just a matter of, what does Heim seem to think is the best path forward? Is it kind of rebuilding this and saying, okay, this core hasn't worked out. We don't have pitching to support this core. Let's try and start developing the pitching and the position players at high A and really take 3 to 5 years to figure this out.
Final one from the 314. Jimmy Snuggerud or Jake Neighbors, which one could make the All-Star? They said All-Star team. I'm assuming that means like the awards at the end of the year, because I don't think either of those guys make the All-Star game. There's not an All-Star game. It's the Olympics, too. But the All-Star team, which is voted on at the end of the year, first team, second team, All-Star. My answer would be Snuggerud, because I don't think it's an All-Star team, but I think it's an all-rookie team. Mm-hmm. He's eligible to be the rookie this year. He could go for the Rookie of the Year, the Calder Trophy, which I think is actually very possible. I love Jake Neighbors. I think Jake Neighbors is a perfect DNA player, but I also don't think Jake Neighbors has the ability to be on an all-star team, unless you're talking about putting up numbers like Zach Hyman did, where, I mean, you're just standing in front of the net all season long scoring 40+. So my answer would be Snuggerud there.
Yeah, mine would be Snuggerud as well, because the shot's going to play, if it plays up like we expect, that's going to lead to him being a more consistent goal scorer than what Jake Neighbors is, because of what you mentioned. His comes in the dirty area. And look at Zach Hyman, for example. Zach Hyman, who I think is a pretty good comp for the player that Jake Neighbors is in terms of how he scores his goals, goes and just parks in front of the net. You look at what he did 2 years ago, was 54 goals. So you think, oh, okay, he's probably a 40-plus goal scorer consistently. This year he scored 27.
Yeah,
it just takes a little bit more puck luck than just beating the goaltender with a shot.
Right, yeah. And that's just, I mean, that's the power forward life right now. So it's just where it goes with it. By the way, somebody texted in and said they played a Winter Classic game on a Notre Dame's field in Indiana in the 2019 Winter Classic. So there you go. But again, a Kansas City Royal Stadium versus Notre Dame Stadium, those are two very different arenas that you're playing in for a Winter Classic game. But I was proven wrong, so thank you for that text on the Notre Dame one back in 2019. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll talk it over with Brad Thompson coming up in 15 minutes, and it's the return of Fantasy Football Friday. That's coming up in 30 minutes. You give us your fantasy football questions. We'll get to those at about 12:30. But coming up next, Yankees and Cardinals playing this weekend. They have had similar fates when it comes to developing position players. The difference is how they combat that. We'll discuss that and which young shortstop you'd bet on moving forward. Next on 101 ESPN.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN. Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
We got Brad Thompson coming up in about 15 minutes, our weekly hit with the Cardinals television analyst as the Cardinals prepare to take on the New York Yankees this weekend at Busch Stadium, better known as the Boston Bombers, as BK called them earlier this week.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. He likes to point out our flaws, so we'll point out his when he's not here.
I don't remember him saying
Yeah, don't you remember the text line lit him up because he said Boston Bombers and he meant the Bronx Bombers? And
Man,
no,
you're
but
going
I
to
don't
mess up
remember
my next update.
I don't even remember what I had for dinner like 2 nights ago.
I'm
or
surprised.
last night even.
Look, I don't remember a lot of things. I do remember when BK misses. This is embarrassing.
Like that?
We'll just move past it. Shut up, T-Bone.
Why?
Look, one thing that the Cardinals have
Did he
messed
need to
up.
drive or something? Like, what was that?
I didn't even land the plane on that one, and it was my transition to say the one thing that the Cardinals have messed up has been developing talent that has high upside. It seems to be the number one complaint for a lot of Cardinals fans, including yours truly, but it's not just something the Cardinals have screwed up. The Yankees did this one as well. The difference between the Yankees and the Cardinals is one has Aaron Judge and the other can't find a bat that can gloss over some of the mistakes. But T-Bone went back and looked at this in terms of the highest ranked 100 prospects for the Yankees and kind of where they were versus what they've done. And I believe this is this season, correct, T-Bone, that you looked at with these numbers? Their career. Okay, so my apologies, their career. Austin Wells was 71 in terms of the top 100 prospects rankings. He's got a 95 OPS plus. Oswaldo Perez, a 51 OPS plus right now, who's not even with the Yankees, he's with the Angels. He was 55th in top 100 prospects. Jason Dominguez, probably their biggest one. He's got a 101 OPS plus. And then Anthony Volpe, their shortstop, who was 10th ranked in top prospects and has an 86 OPS plus for his career with the Yankees. They've struggled here. But so have the Cardinals. Cardinals, Walker was 4th ranked, 93 OPS plus. Gorman 34th, he's at 103. Wynn 39th, 93. Burleson 91, a 103 OPS plus. Like, both of these teams have been unable to develop the players that they draft and turn them into, whether it's complementary pieces, but the Cardinals have a lot more success than that, or turn them into stars that can help guide them to consistent playoff pushes. But again, why have people talked so much about the Yankees over the last couple of years? Because they have Aaron Judge, who's one of the best players in the game. They spend money to fix their problems when they can't draft, like going out there and getting Juan Soto or Garrett Cole or Max Fried, whereas the Cardinals just continue to churn through their development, keep drafting and trying to find the next diamond in the rough, and still struggle with the development. And man, that's just it, T-Bone. That's what's plagued this team. Like, when they can't develop it, they just say, we'll go back to the drawing boards. They don't try and move on from those pieces, or they don't try and fill those gaps. They keep pushing with those players that never develop into what they want.
Yeah, here recently, especially this season, again, it comes down to they don't have that guy to prop them up. Because when I was thinking about the Cardinals and was like looking at this series, you know, I get to these prospects that you're talking about, the Wells, Peraza, Dominguez, Volpe. Because remember, the Cardinals, Walker, Gorman, Wynn, and Burleson were all top 100 prospects, and were the guys that we were talking about of, hey, these are kind of the saviors of the franchise, right? You're going to have this young core come up with Goldschmidt and Arenado, and then they're going to be the ones that help lift up the floor for the Cardinals, while Goldie and Arenado are the guys that kind of keep the ceiling there. And neither team's really been able to do this with their top 100 prospects. They've all been right around league average, or in Peraza's case, terrible. I look at this and I say, okay, now why is it that the Yankees haven't just fallen off of the cliff? And it is the spending. To me, it's the two things. It is, one, the spending on starting pitching, because they haven't really developed an arm. Clark Schmidt, I think, is the one that you can look at them and say, hey, he was drafted, he was a high pick, and he's been solid for the New York Yankees this year, and he's started to figure it out at the big league level. He's dealt with some injuries this year. Gill's a fun story for them, but I'm not sure how realistic him having the success that he had last year is going to be, because he has a walk issue as a starter. But it comes down to, what did they do when they had issues with their starting rotation? They went out and they signed Carlos Rodon. They went out and they signed Max Fried. The Cardinals were never going to do the Garrett Cole contract because his was a ridiculous length in money. Rodon is the kind of contract that they should be willing to do. Carlos Rodon signed a 6-year, $162 million deal with the Yankees. That's a contract that we talked about at the time. Should the Cardinals be exploring? They didn't do that. They did the Sonny Gray shorter term. They go the Gibson and Lance Lynn route, going for more of the certainty rather than paying for the upside with Rodon. But the other thing, too, is they just don't have the Aaron Judge. Yeah. You know, they haven't developed that guy. That is the one success story from the position player side that you can look at for the Yankees and say, okay, this one really worked out. They also had some success with Ben Rice as well, who's put together another good year. But Aaron Judge is really the one. That is the superstar that when he is in the lineup, the New York Yankees are a really good team. But as we've seen over this year when he missed time with this elbow injury, and as we saw, I think it was last year or 2 years ago when he had that toe injury, they are nowhere close to the same team when they pluck him out of the lineup. They go through a massive swoon each time that he disappears and have a losing record. So that is the thing for the Cardinals. They don't have that guy to prop up their lineup that can help lift up these players that have been solid pieces for the Cardinals that are about league average. But when you don't have the star, it goes back to our conversation yesterday. Everybody gets put in a role that they're not supposed to be in, and that's how you can get to a spot where you have losing record against the bad teams.
Well, and it's not just his injury or in the regular season. Look at what happens when he goes quiet in the playoffs. Like when he's gone quiet in the playoffs for the Yankees, they have nobody else who can pick up that load for them. It was this past year where he actually was decent, and they were able to get to the World Series. But beyond that, it's just... We talked about this about a month ago when it was like, man, the Cardinals do what other teams desperately need when they have the star, and it's develop all of the pieces that make the star and the team better. The Cardinals can't find the star that covers up the warts that they have when they develop all of these complementary pieces. And not to give away the farm, we're going to get into the Brewers a little bit later on in the 1 o'clock hour, but, you know, we went back and looked at this. Like the Brewers are a team that has not been good, but over the last 5-6 years, they've been a team that every year makes the playoffs, and every year is typically towards first or second place in the Central Division, in the NL Central. What did they do? Well, they continue to develop pieces in their minor league system, but They went out there and they got that star in Christian Yelich, and it covered up some of the other warts, and they were able to adjust around that. That is the difference with this one, and none bigger than what you're going to see on display at the shortstop position, whether it's Aaron Volpe that's on the New York Yankees side, who, man, if you listen to anybody in New York that's a fan right now of the Yankees, they're saying, get this bum out of here because he's not Derek Jeter. Meanwhile, the Cardinals have Mason Wynn, and anytime we bring up the idea of the Cardinals potentially trading that piece away, people are saying, what are you talking about? You got a young, controllable asset who's incredible at the shortstop position. And this may surprise a lot of people. T-Bone looked at these numbers. They are the exact same player. It's just Mason Wynn is elite defensively, and I haven't seen a whole lot of Volpe in New York. I don't think he's elite like Mason Wynn.
It's not good.
But the offense is the exact same.
He's taken a huge step back.
Yeah.
He was a Gold Glove guy last season, but to your point, in year number 2, it's funny the manner in which he has rapidly regressed, frankly, Tanner, not just in the field, but rather at the plate as well. And it's striking to look at the statistics and to think about our conversation, revisit that from yesterday insofar as, okay, Mason Wynn, how much more can you extract out of him, from him offensively? We know that he has one elite skill defensively there at short. The fact of the matter also is that when you look at Volpe's OPS, for instance, this season of 710, Mason Wynn barely lagging behind that at 701. There are 18 other qualified shortstops at the position across Major League Baseball with a better OPS than Anthony Volpe, and he absolutely went through an utter swoon in the months of June and July. It hasn't gotten that much better in August, so it's funny to think about just how recently he was regarded as an upper-level cream of the crop prospect, and now you put those two surface statistics, you put those stat lines together, and they are remarkably similar.
I think it's pretty obvious which one you're betting on moving forward, right? Like, you'd bet on Mason Wynn versus Volpe.
Yeah, and it's because of the defense.
Yeah.
You know, I think both guys' bats could eventually get to where the teams originally thought. The thing with Volpe, the on base is low, but I still think these guys still have some more in the tank offensively, but the Wynn defense puts him at another level. I mean, this guy, as you mentioned, Gold Glove caliber, cannon of an arm, by the way. Volpe's not been as good defensively this year as Bradford had mentioned. Yeah, so I think if you're betting, if you could like pick one of these two guys tonight, you could just take them and say, this guy's going to stay with us for the rest of the year and for the next 3 years. Wins the guy that I would bet on.
Yeah, especially if you're the Yankees, because the one thing that you need when you have an Aaron Judge is to be really good defensively, not make mistakes, and then have guys who are close to being league average. And if you've got errors without being close to league average, then there's no role for you on this team.
To Bradford's point on his defense, Volpe in 2023, 157 games, 17 errors. 2024, 160 games, 16 errors. He's played 120 games. We've got about 40 games left to go this season. He is already at 16 errors defensively this season, which is tied for last year. He's probably going to set a new career high in errors at the shortstop position. That is not something that you want to have from your what is supposed to be the best defensive position on the ball field, which is your shortstop.
He is tied with Ellie for the most errors at that position in all of baseball. So what you have to do here, you have to strip away that prospect pedigree, because right now it's a results-oriented business for the Yankees. We saw that it was a flash last season. It was a sizable one at that. But it's also interesting to consider the manner in which Wynn has developed last season. Okay, the errors definitely, I wouldn't say were a problem because of the range, because of the arm, but there was such an emphasis on the offseason, early portion of this year in 2025, guys, of being able to just strengthen that so much more, the range, and not worrying about actually making the outright mistakes. It has flipped in New York.
Yep, and we'll see those two in action this evening, starting the weekend series. Coming up at 15, we'll get to Fantasy Football Friday. You can send us your fantasy football questions. We'll get to those in a bit. But coming up next, we'll talk more about the Cardinals and Yankees series as Cardinals TV analyst Brad Thompson joins us next year on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team studio cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN studio cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're hanging with Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Hanging breaking ball from Brad Thompson. And boy, does he get a swing on it. Lift and separate and see you later.
Hanging with BT is sponsored by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Friday staple as we get the chance to catch up and talk Cardinals baseball and whatever else we decide to get into with Brad Thompson, the Cardinals TV analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest, as he joins us now on the Collier and Thompson hotline. BT, happy Friday to you, man. And in true Friday fashion, one of the three of us is out of the show.
That is exactly where I was going to start. Must not have had Ollie in the studio today. Not everybody could show up today. I understand it's a Friday. I'm all into a 4-day work week, too. I think that is very healthy. If you could do that, it sets up for long weekends. I love the way that you guys have got this worked out.
Yep, and then next Friday, BT, you'll have fun talking with BK and Tanner because I'll take it off once again. It's just how we do this, 4-day weeks in the summer.
Where are you going next week?
I am doing the staycation because all of my girls start school, and so it's my last opportunity to be around the family before hockey season kicks off. So we decided to just staycation and be around.
That's a smart way to do it. I like that.
I just want to point out, BT, that there's a common theme here that Tanner's the one that's always here on Fridays, not getting the 4-day week.
No, T-Bone, you're the grinder of the group, and I will promise you, at some point, it's already coming to fruition. I mean, you're a star already, but the star's going to keep growing. You work hard, you show up every day, you don't take every other Friday off, and good things happen for you. Yeah. No offense, Alex. No. Great things are happening for you, too. Total offense to BK since he's not there.
Yes, I was going to say, and then next week you could do the total offense to me. I totally understand that one. No offense taken. Well, BT, let's talk about the series because, man, it's always exciting when you get the chance to see a superstar like Aaron Judge. The Yankees roll into town. I'm sure you're pumped for this one as well, but we said it in the open. It feels a little less exciting than what it should be for where the Cardinals have been over these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, look. When you drop a series to the Rockies, that can be a little deflating, especially after you won a series against the Dodgers on the road. You took care of your rival Cubs at home, took 2 out of 3. You win the first one against the Rockies, then all of a sudden it's like, boom, here we go. But the thing to remember is, and again, I don't know where this season's going to end up. We know that this is a young group, it's an inexperienced group, and it's a team that hasn't been to the postseason in a couple of years. But this is a team that is still only 3.5 games out of a wild card. And we've seen in a given week how quickly those things can flip. And on the other side, Aaron Boone's club is coming in limping a little bit. They're a team that has struggled here as of late. So they've dropped, 4 and 8 in their last 12. They're not playing great baseball. So it's an opportunity here, right? It's a chance for the Cardinals to continue to dig in their heels. And I've said this for a long time, and I believe it to be true. It really doesn't matter who they're playing, guys. It matters if they do what they're supposed to do. If they take care of situational hitting, that'll be great. What they didn't do in the final 2 games against the Rockies was take care of situational hitting. They were 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. Since the All-Star break, they're hitting just over 200 with RISP. I think it's the 4th worst mark in baseball. That's not going to cut it against the Yankees or against anybody else. So little things have to be there. Defense has to be there. But it's going to be a fun weekend regardless. You guys coming down?
I will be there tonight, BT. I got my dad.
T-Bone.
I got my dad tickets to the game as part of Father's Day. So
that's a good Father's Day gift right there.
Well,
I never know what to do.
It was. I don't know about that.
It still is. It's still the Yankees.
Yeah, that's true. I can't wait to see Aaron Judge.
T-Bone.
Yeah.
You text me. You get We'll get Pops up to the booth. We'll make him take his picture with Chip. It'll be great. He'll like it.
I'll do that.
Look at that.
We'll make it happen.
Right. See, BT coming through.
BT, I did want to ask you. I mean, you mentioned the Cardinals when they are right and they're hitting when it's runners in scoring position, they can get good pitching at times. They've kind of held serve with teams above 500 this year, 32 and 36. That's kind of what you want to do against 500 or teams that are better than 500. But where they've had their struggles, as we've talked about, is for some reason, it's these teams that are below 500. They're not taking care of business like they should, where they dropped 4-6 to the Rockies this season. My question to you, as someone that played in Major League Baseball, can it be tough at times to get up for some of these games when you're going up against teams that, like, the Rockies are one of the worst teams in baseball? Can it be difficult for players to get amped up for a game against a team that's, like, rebuilding compared to when, like, you're playing the Yankees when they come to town?
Look, I guess there's a human element. We talk about it more from a broadcast level than you talk about it from a player standpoint of like a trap game or a trap series, right? And the Rockies one would fit that bill. Emotional highs of taking down the Cubs, and then you have the worst team in baseball coming in. But at the end of the day, and I'm sure that we've talked about this on this show, I know I've talked about it with the Fast Lane for sure, is this team can't afford to do that. And it's not just because of where they're at in the standings. This is a ball club that has a lot to prove on an individual basis. I mean, across the board, I mean, we could go man to man of like, do you know what this guy is and what the future looks like? There's going to be a lot more no's than there are yeses, right? So the idea of getting up for a series or being ready for it, I don't think that is a part of it for this crew. I didn't feel like that was the issue. Like anytime that you fall flat offensively, it feels like, or when you don't score runs, it feels like you're flat, right? And that's like always a narrative. Oh, they weren't ready. They were ready. They were prepared. They didn't execute, and there's a difference, right? But I don't believe that part of it factors in. Now, I will say on the flip side of that, after you have a disappointing series, and I mean, there will be atmosphere tonight at the stadium with the Yankees coming in, and you'll feel some energy from that. But just the losing 2 out of 3 from the Rockies should piss you off enough where you're dialed in no matter what. So I think this group's going to be ready for sure.
We're talking with Brad Thompson here, Cardinals TV analyst on BK and Ferrario, as he's joining us on the Callier and Thompson hotline. BT, it's no secret that the offense has struggled this second half since what we saw in the first half looked like there was some real signs of optimism. What do you take away when you see guys who started off so hot like Alec Burleson or Brendan Donovan or Ivan Herrera when they go through a cold spell for about a month since the trade deadline?
Yeah, I don't think that there's one issue across the board for each one of those guys. And look, Donovan's going through a rough patch right now. I think he's hitting just over 200 since the All-Star break, and obviously an All-Star first half for Donnie. There are certainly different factors. There's the one where the league starts figuring you out. There's enough data on the season, and if you have guys executing to your weaknesses, more times than not, they're going to get you, right? And then you have to be able to play that cat and mouse game of, all right, well, this is the pitch that they're continuing to go with. Can I lay off of it? Can I drive it the other direction? To me, you mentioned Burley. I think that's when he's at his best, is he does spoil the pitches on the outer half, and he's not afraid to take his singles. Then he's got that big-time pull power that we've seen, over the season. He can drive the baseball in the inner half, especially if you make a mistake. We saw that this past weekend with a breaking ball down and in. But you have that part of it. I also think that you have your quote-unquote dog days. It's not that you're not mentally ready. It's just sometimes physically you get worn down during the season. If your swing's a little bit slow, if you've got maybe some lower half things that have added up over the season, maybe your legs aren't as strong or just as vibrant as you want. We know that the swing, just like pitching mechanics, everything starts from the ground. So if you're a tick off when you have a couple of milliseconds to swing a bat, those things can catch up, and mentally that gets draining too. So that's the third part of it, I think. When you start struggling a little bit, you start thinking about it more. Then you start maybe even trying to cheat on some swings more and try to jump some pitches instead of trusting in your foundation and trusting in the preparation. So I really think that for any hitter, and we've seen veterans go through, we've seen Nolan Arenado go through some of these things the last couple of years, and he's Cooperstown bound. Like, nobody is immune to it. But that is the rigors of playing a 162 major league season, and you got to figure out ways to snap out of the funk. You got to figure out what the opposition is doing to you, and we're going to see if these guys can make adjustment. The hard part is when you have a couple of guys scuffling at the same time, and that's where they're at right now. That's why since the All-Star break, to your point, I think they're averaging just over 3 runs a game, 3.3 runs a game since the All-Star break. They're hitting 240 as a club, and the aforementioned 203 with runners in scoring position, right? That's just not where you want to be as a ball club. And they don't, top to bottom, they don't have the power to break them out of games. I mean, this is an offense they're facing the Yankees, who have hit the most home runs in baseball. Cardinals have hit 115. That's the 5th fewest, right? So They just don't have that one swing of the bat that's going to get them back into ball games.
BT, just a quick follow-up on that, because, Ollie's talked a lot about how a lot of these guys are just figuring out what it takes to be big leaguers, and that's some of the fatigue that you're talking about, whether it's mental or physical. You were a pitcher, you went through this grind, and you spend a lot of time around position players. Do you feel like there's one side of the baseball player that's harder mentally? Is it the position player or is it the pitcher?
You know what? I think that they're really they're the same, and that's not fair to say, because I guess I've never been in the shoes of a hitter. Now, I will say this. Being a guy that has to answer the bell every single day, if you're a position player and you're scuffling and you feel like you're swimming, there is no escape. Like, you're going to be in the lineup every day, so I could see that part of it being difficult. If you're a starting pitcher, you have some days in between to try to work on things and maybe mentally get right. But I can tell you from my time starting, when you're struggling as a starter and you have a couple of starts in a row, don't leave me alone with my thoughts for 4 or 5 days. You know what I mean? Like, that part of it can, it'll eat you up. All of a sudden, you're in every mirror working on your mechanics and don't sleep. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. A little more high strung than others. But it's one where mentally this game can drain you, both sides of it. People care so much about what they do, and I know that most fans know that. The ignorant fan is like, oh, they just don't care, they're just making money. That's the stupidest comment ever. Everybody cares about what they're doing, and it can be mentally taxing on, again, rookies or veteran guys. So I think it's tough across the board when you're not doing the job to the level that you're used to doing it, or at least expect to do it.
BT, tonight the Cardinals have got Andre Pallante on the mound. And speaking of a guy that's been going through it, Pallante in his last 6 starts, 7.67 ERA. Opponents have an 834 OPS against him. Is he a guy that is guaranteed a locked spot into the rotation going into 2026, or does he still have to prove that here in the final month and a half in this season of runway?
Look, I don't think that there are too many things for 2026 that should be locked, in my opinion. I don't know. I think they factor him in to 2026, but there are a lot of things that still need to be earned. Andre Pallante has proven that he can pitch at the big league level. He's also proven that he's going to have some rough times. The last time out against the Cubbies was a really rough time. Only lasted an inning and 2/3, gave up 6. It's been, when you look at his numbers over the season, it's a roller coaster, right? Because the start before that against the Padres, he was fine, gave you a chance, 5 innings, gave up 2. Start before that against the Marlins, really good. 7 innings, only 1 hit. I mean, dude was outstanding. Then you had those 3 in a row that weren't good. Then another 7 innings, no earned runs, only 1 hit against the Pirates. It's the inconsistencies that he's trying to clean up. Now, some of those inconsistencies, as you guys know, is just the volatility of the ball in play. He is not generally going to be a high strikeout guy. He's not, he's not even a 9K per 9 guy, which I know all about that. Like, ball's going to be in play. Boys, be ready. And he's got far better stuff than I ever did. No doubt about that. But you're going to have some of that volatility. But to me, the next step for Andre Pallante, and this isn't like reinventing the wheel, but it's his ability to land his slider and his curveball. If he can do that, you go back and look at some of the games, and certainly the ball in play, like the batting average of ball in play on the games where he does really well, it's going to be a hell of a lot lower. Like, that's just part of it. Sometimes you have a game where they just hit him at everybody. Sometimes you have a game where they hit him in the hole. Like, that's going to happen. But when he is landing his breaking balls for strikes and then can throw them for chase, he has better results. Like, as a hitter right now against Andre Pallante, the thought process, and I'm sure the meeting probably is, hey, if you pick up spin, let it go. Like, make him prove that he can throw that for a strike. And then when he doesn't, you're in fastball counts, a pitch that he uses a lot, and it's very effective, especially against the lefties. But when you're sitting on it, it is less effective, right? So that ends up being a big key for him, especially against a very dangerous lineup. Even though the Yankees have struggled, I don't think that anybody expects those struggles to last forever for this club, who won the pennant a year ago. So that's going to be what I'm looking for tonight. Can he land the slider for a strike? How does that feel for the knuckle curve? He'll have some days where it looks great. He'll have other days where he spikes it 50 feet like 4 times. And then you're afraid to go back to it in spots, rightfully so. You got to compete against a big lineup, especially when oftentimes times the Cardinals don't have a big lead. Usually when you have a lead, it's easier to work on things, right? You have a little bit of a cushion. It's all right, let me get back to this breaking ball. Let's get back in it so I can utilize my whole arsenal. These pitchers have been kind of fighting for their lives if you've been struggling for offense, so it's very difficult to work on things. But going towards next year for Pallante, for most of the guys, honestly, on this team, most of them are going to be there, but I don't think that everything is in Sharpie right now. I think that right now you're still earning positions for next year.
That's why this offseason I find so fascinating. Probably the most fascinating one in a long time for this Cardinals team. BT, always great to catch up with you, man. Enjoy this weekend series against the Yankees, and I'll talk to you in about 2 weeks on Friday.
Sounds good. Enjoy your time home with the family while you still got it. I know how busy the season gets. And T-Bone, I'll see you at the ballpark.
See you, BT.
There you go. Brad Thompson. Always love getting the chance to catch up with our Cardinals TV analyst here on 101 ESPN. I mean, again, I sound like a broken record when I say it, but he's right. Like, as much as we think guys are guaranteed positions next year, I don't know if I'm writing anybody in pen, just because it's uncertain where Heim could potentially go. And as much as we have seen Andre Pallante struggle and feel like we know what it is, the Cardinals also know it's not getting better anytime soon. And Andre Pallante is cheap, and he posts every fifth day, and that's what they need right now.
Yeah, I think the only guys that I think you can write in pen as guys that are locked in spots for 2026, I think it's
guys they can't move off of.
Yeah, I was going to bring those guys up.
Although I don't know.
The only reason I hesitate on them is because maybe there's a change of heart, especially if they do sell off more pieces. But yeah, for right now, I would say assume the
Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado.
Do we call them the big three or just the?
I'd just call them the three.
Yeah,
I'd call them the three.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
I thought the Azure was a little strong on big.
Really, just the one, because I don't think Wilson Contreras is having a change of heart. Sonny Gray, I could see. Nolan Arenado, I think he's already had it.
Yeah, so you got those three, and then I would say McGreevy, Libby, and that'd probably be it. I don't know if there's anybody else. Like, I think there's guys that are probably written in pencil for right now.
And then it's just, we upgrade over this with offseason
Like,
moves?
I think Wynn, probably written in pencil for me. Herrera, written in pencil. Burleson, written in pencil.
Yeah.
Scott, probably written in pencil.
Because we've talked about it, like, if they can't move Arenado, you're talking about potentially moving off of 2 or 3 position players. And those 2 or 3 position players could be in return one pitcher for your rotation next year, or at least somebody that could compete for that spot. And that comes down to what happens with Arenado, because if you can't move them, then you're moving off of more. If you can, well, now you're not moving off of as many pieces, because now you got other holes to fill with the position players. But Andre Pallante gets the start tonight against the New York Yankees. Coming up at 15, we'll get into the junk drawer. But coming up next, the return of Fantasy Football Friday. We know your drafts are right around the corner, so you send us the questions. We'll get into some of your fantasy football. We'll consider ourselves experts next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
We've got your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Monster Jam. Saturday, September 20th at the Dome at America's Center. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks and world champion drivers take over St. Louis for the ultimate day packed with high-flying action and jaw-dropping stunts.
Get all the info and enter to win that free 4-pack of tickets for Monster Jam. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Grounded to third, diving play by Arenado. Brings up the out.
hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Pallante tries to turn it around versus Yanks. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your SportsCenter update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. After getting shelled during last Saturday's start against the Cubs, Cardinals righty Andre Pallante eyes a bounce-back opportunity tonight. STL hosting New York roughly 7 hours from now. Yankees skipper Aaron Boone calls on second-year hurler Luis Gil, who will be making his third appearance of 2025. Elsewhere's Pirates-Cubbies action commencing in 45 minutes. Milwaukee visiting Cincinnati shortly before 6. Gridiron-wise, Mizzou's weekend travel destination, St. Charles. Lindenwood accommodating those Tigers for tomorrow's closed practice. This SportsCenter update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I'm going to be totally upfront with you guys. I just panicked a little bit because this is our pick'em bed, and I thought we were doing pick'ems here. And I know I teased fantasy football. I think this just provides PTSD when I hear this sound. I'm like, oh, I got to make my damn picks, and I forgot to, or I forgot to look at it, and now I'm going to lose.
Or it inspires you.
Have to do punishment? No, it really doesn't. It did like 2 years ago when I was winning. Last year was rough.
I think I was the only one last year. I didn't lose last year, if I don't remember
think
correctly.
so. I don't think so because I did half the punishments and BK did half of them.
This bet doesn't scare me like it scares those two.
God, it scares the hell out of me. But thankfully, we still got a couple more weeks before we get to that, which we'll have to come up with our punishment list at some point so people can find those out. And we always love ideas on punishment, and you can send those over to us via our YouTube chat, the Graveyard at 101 ESPN STL, or on our Air Comfort Service text line. That's where we're getting your fantasy football questions because I know the football drafts are right around the corner for a lot of you. So if you've got questions, us three will be the experts today. We'll answer them. So send your fantasy football questions over to us on our Air Comfort Service text line. Let's start with this one here from 314. Guys, I've got the number one overall pick in a 12-team snake draft, half a point PPR. Who are you taking with that number one spot? If you were to ask BK, he'll take Christian McCaffrey, and he'll be out, and then he'll lose the entire season of fantasy football.
Yeah, that was rough last year.
That was rough. By the way, isn't Bradford in our league this year?
Yeah. Right?
You're a wild card because I don't know. You got way too much experience to where I'm kind of worried you're going to fleece us all, or I think you just might not know.
I'm coming for everybody. As Killmonger said in Black Panther, I want the throne.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Well, that's the guy you're going after because I'm typically second or third place. All right, number one pick, T-Bone, where are you going?
Yeah, and he said it was PPR, right?
Half PPR.
Oh, half PPR?
Yeah, half PPR.
I always lean wide receiver.
I do too.
Because even in a half PPR, right? Say receiver has 5 catches. That's 2.5 points right there. You're talking about 25 rushing yards for your running back to get to that. So I personally would say Jamar Chase. He's the guy that I'm looking at as the number one pick. I could get how maybe you lean, Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley if you're thinking, hey, I'd rather have a running back. I would probably lean Barkley at 1 then, but I'm always a wide receiver guy, so I would say Jamar Chase would be the guy that I would go with number 1 overall.
Yeah, Jamar is the one that I've looked at, and it's I don't know how you pass up on this because Joe Burrow, you got an offense that's going to have to carry this team, but I actually would lean Saquon, and it's only because the running back position is very light in the second, third, fourth round. Wide receiver is heavy. And so I think I can load up on wide receivers. And if I get that first overall pick with a snake draft, I know I'm waiting a while, but I could still get some elite wide receivers when it gets back to me with back-to-back picks rather than take a wide receiver and it get to me and running backs are very thin.
Yeah, and provided that T. Higgins actually stays healthy for the Bengals too, Burrow still with a number of mouths to feed. Now, of course, Chase is the undisputed number one guy. Let me give you another running back, guys, who could factor into. I'm not saying he should be the number one individual ahead of, for instance, a Saquon Barkley.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Motown, little D-Town,
Yep,
Jameer Gibbs.
Yep.
I'm speaking to you, my friend.
Yep.
Speaking to you.
I like that one, especially with a half PPR for reception. You know he's going to be that check down guy, especially if they need to make plays. Goff loves to throw the ball, different offensive coordinator. I like that one as well. The one I wouldn't go with is I wouldn't go with Bijan Robinson because I just don't know with the Falcons. I think I'd go a Jefferson, I'd go a Chase, I'd go a McCaffrey, or not a McCaffrey, a Barkley, or I'd go a Jameer Gibbs before I would get to Bijan.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just me on that one. All right, another one. Which rookie do you guys think is dynasty pick worthy? I've never played in a dynasty league.
I'd love to. I think it'd be fun.
I feel like it takes a lot of time and effort, but I've heard it's very fun. But Dynasty League, for those that don't know, it's basically you're just building off of the teams that you draft every single year, correct? Like you're going off of those future picks so that they benefit you 3-4 years from now. I really like Ashton Genty. And I mean, like, if I'm going Dynasty pick, I know running backs are very fickle, but if you get the right guy in the right system, you never have to worry about that running back again, which is always the weirdest ones where you only got 3 or 4 guys that are great, and then you got to be going for those sleeper picks. So I think I'd be going Ashton Genty if we're going Dynasty.
Yeah, I think he's my pick as well because, like, typically I would want to say a wide receiver in this spot again because I am a guy that leans heavily on the wide receivers. But the problem is like the wide receiver draft class wasn't anything that I think is worth writing home about. And, like, I like Travis Hunter as a player. I'm like trying to avoid him when it comes to my drafts because I'm scared of it was just announced a couple minutes ago that he's going to miss their second preseason game because he's dealing with some kind of nagging injury. Yeah. And it scares me, him being on both sides of the ball. McMillan in Carolina, no thanks. Tyler Warren, yeah, but I want to do a tight end. I think Genty's the guy. He's the one guy that feels like he's got a high ceiling, even though I agree running backs can be a fickle position. I think I would say Ashton Genty as well.
Can I get like a 5-year run out of it? That's what I'd ask if I'm going off of that play.
Exactly. I'm not scared off. I'm not pushed away whatsoever by that inauspicious. There's a good one for you, Alex. Preseason debut for Genty. Roll with him. And also on the low, I'm not saying this is going to be the number one receiver a decade or so from now, but I like the situation in which Matthew Golden, previously of Texas, finds himself because Green Bay has been targeting a number one sort of guy vertically for Jordan Love ever since Devontae Adams departed. Maybe he could, if everything catches up to the speed, actually morph into that guy.
I do like that one because he was my second answer, but Genty's just such a stud where I leaned with him. But I do like Golden because he was the wide receiver I considered because he's got the quarterback there as well. You know, Bryce Young's still in Carolina.
Very true, very true. And I do like McMillan, but, man, it's just I don't trust the quarterback or that team.
Exactly.
And so I can't go with this one. Let's play off the rookie running back here. Travion Henderson, is he worth a first or a second round pick? This is another one that I just don't know because I don't know where the Patriots are at, but they've got a great quarterback. They've got a great head coach that knows how to utilize running backs like we saw with Tennessee. I don't think that's worth a first or a second round pick, though. I would be going many other players before I'm even consider. This is one of those sleeper picks that I'd try and capitalize on later in the draft if he's still there.
Yeah, I don't even see him. I'm looking like at average draft positions. I can't even find him
because he's not even the primary back there, is he? They still got.
You don't know about Stevenson though. No. Last season, really, the production as well as the health, it definitely tailed off. That's a home run hitter, and we saw that in the very first preseason affair when visiting actually with him at the scouting combine there in Indianapolis. Struck me as a guy, quite honestly, who could be able to take on more of the lion's share of carries. He split time at OSU last season with Judkins. As far as getting to the outside, you just wonder about the carries in year one. Patriots want to run the football, make it easier on Drake May. But I'd say, what do you think, Tanner, 4th or 5th round? Maybe even a bit of a reach there?
Oh, yeah. I'm like not even thinking about him until it's in the no.
He's a waiver wire guy.
I'm on my free surface here. He's not even seeable. So I think you're talking about a guy that is the late rounds. He's a guy you're drafting as kind of the backup to the back.
Let's get to a couple of these fantasy football questions. Fantasy Football Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Should I pick Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors first in a PPR league? I don't know if this means first pick or just first round, like their first pick. Let's go down that path because I don't think either of those are a first overall pick worthy in a PPR league. I'm going Malik Neighbors. And it's just because it's the only guy. Now, I know the quarterback is in flux, but not that Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't the only player, but I feel like there's other options with their tight end, whereas the Giants have nothing. It's Malik Neighbors, so I'd be going Neighbors first if I have the two in front of me.
Yeah, of those two, I would take Neighbors as well. Bigger volume, share the targets there. And for Harrison, he was very streaky last year. I had him in one of my leagues.
He was great early on, and then he disappeared in the second half.
There would be games where you'd be like, wow, okay, Marvin Harrison, maybe he's going to be able to sustain this. Then there'd be games where he's like just disappears. So I would say Neighbors for sure. I think he's a better lock than what you're getting from Harrison.
I mean, last season, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the definition of boom or bust, right? Whereas Malik Neighbors, you knew he was well over 1,000 yards. He actually got into the end zone more than 10 times. And I question the stability at quarterback for both of those teams. But as much as you can really poke holes there in Kyler Murray, certainly in Arizona, never having really reached the playoffs there, for New York, the faster, in my opinion, that you can get to Jackson Dart or even be able to run down some of those Russell Wilson moonballs, Neighbors is going to be the undisputed number one guy.
From Moistest to Lou on our Air Comfort Service text line, do I keep CeeDee Lamb or do I keep Josh Jacobs? I mean, I don't know about you guys. Mine would be Lamb.
Yeah.
If I got an elite number one wide receiver, I'm going to keep that every day of the week. Versus, and I know Jacobs is up there, but I still think there's a few other running backs that I could take over that. Lamb is probably top 3 right now.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb would be the one for me. I mean, he's wide receiver, elite number one wide receiver. You hope that Pickens opens up away some of the double teams from him now that he's in Dallas as well. Yeah, I would lead towards CeeDee Lamb as well.
Has that contract. He's taking care of at least one of those situations resolved in Big D. And Jacobs, that's the thing, guys, when you're talking about the running back position, you never know when that bottom potentially is going to fall out. And I would say in Green Bay, LaFleur of the mindset there to perhaps distribute the carries a little more accordingly to Lamb for the long term.
Final one, sleeper picks. Who's the sleeper pick for you that's not on most people's radar? I suck at sleeper picks.
Oh, these are what win you your fantasy.
I know, and I suck at them.
The 2 years that I won in our league, I ended up hitting on, I can't remember one of who they were, but I had 2 guys that ended up becoming like my perfect number 3 guys for me to lead the charge. One that I really like, and I credit The Athletic because I saw this morning when I was reading up a little on fantasy football. Juwan Jennings of the San Francisco 49ers. He was really good for them last year while they were dealing with their injuries where Debo was out. You had Brandon Ayuk who ended up tearing his ACL. He put together a couple pretty good years. He's being drafted in the 40s typically, wide receiver 40 to 43. I really like him as a late round pickup as a guy that, okay, maybe he's that number 2 to Brandon Ayuk. See if Debo Samuel really starts to target him more, was able to build a little chemistry with him throughout the year. I really like Juwan Jennings as a guy to pick up late in your fantasy draft.
I don't know how much a quarterback can be a sleeper pick, but one for me would be Bo Nix. And it's just, I think his average draft position was like 97, somewhere in that range, which you're talking like 5th, 6th, 7th round. And I know a lot of people, once that first quarterback goes off the board, everybody starts to get real horned up about quarterbacks and they start drafting them left and right. I like Bo Nix, where you could load up your team and still get a guy who's a dual threat, throws the ball, but can also run and score. I know BK talks a lot about that with their quarterbacks. That would be a sleeper pick for me.
For me, it's not the obvious backfield suspect in the Steel City, rather than actually leaning toward a Jalen Warren. And he would appear to be the guy moving into the season. Probably should have taken over for Najee Harris quite a while ago. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that division against all of those uber physical defenses, Aaron Rodgers is not the same guy. That has been well established. Caleb Johnson was an absolute stud last season at Iowa. And to our point just a few minutes ago, if Ashton Genty hadn't been that great for Boise State, Caleb Johnson would have received that much more love. So I would expect within the span of just a few weeks for Johnson to really take over or at least grab a lion's share of those carries from Warren second half of the season, getting into that end zone pretty regularly too.
Real quick. Yeah. Who's an offense that you're looking at? Not the ones everybody's going to target, right? Everybody's going to target the Bengals. Everybody's going to target the Lions. Who's the offense that you're looking at and going, they could have a big year. I'm going to try and target and get as many of those guys as possible. Because for me, I think I said this last year and I was wrong, but I'm going to fall for him again. Duh, Bears.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm not falling for that.
I heard, I saw a cut from Kaplan today saying that Caleb Williams is looking good in camp, not from what some of the videos are showing on social media. They fix that O-line. You've got DeAndre Swift. You've got DJ Moore, Roman Odunze, Luther Burden added to the mix. I could see where if that O-line can protect Caleb Williams and he has a good year, that offense could be very good and be very sneaky. Cole Kmet tight end, by the way.
Mm-hmm. I like that one. I don't trust it because I don't trust Caleb Williams. So I get it. And now when you got the creativity of the offense or the offense coordinator, now head coach Ben Johnson, I like that one. I think for me, I'm looking through these just to kind of make sure I'm not stupid here. I think mine would be Tampa.
That's another.
Like if I can target one of those wide receivers in terms of Evans or Godwin, if I could target Bucky Irving on the running back side of things or Baker Mayfield late in the draft, I mean, that team put up the second most points in the NFC last year. I think that would be the team I'd probably be targeting.
Tanner, I see you with that love for LB3 in the Windy City. I will actually move, though, guys, in the direction of the AFC. And year number 2, actually, at the helm of this team, I think it's going to be that much more improved in the AFC West. I actually like for some of the shackles to be removed from Justin Herbert for the Chargers. You drafted Hampton as well. We know this is a ground and pound style philosophy. If you can get any further development from those receivers outside of Ladd, I really do believe that this is an offense as well to complement that defense on the upswing.
From the 314, after listening to this segment, I've come to the conclusion that you guys don't know crap about fantasy football. You're welcome, 314. You're going to win the league now because of us. The 3 experts, Fantasy Football Friday. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll hit the junk drawer next on 101 ESPN.
NFL preseason action continues tomorrow. Rams and Chargers. Pregame at 5:30, kickoff at 8. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
All right, let's dive into the junk drawer before we get to Mike McKenna. Macadoodle Mike on the other side. Missed him last week, so we'll get some hockey talk with Mike McKenna coming up in about 10 minutes. But T-Bone, what do you got today?
Guys, the first World Humanoid Robot Games are underway as they're being hosted in Beijing.
I saw this.
You've got robots that play soccer, not very quickly. You've got robots that box. And then you've got maybe my personal favorite because it looks kind of funny. Robots doing track and field. And what's funny about it is you've got the guy controlling the robot running behind the robot.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. I'm surprised. You don't know this toy, though. Bradford, you know this toy. The most interesting one for me on that was the two robots fighting.
Boom.
Boxing.
Yeah.
That's Rock'em Sock'em Robots,
That's
baby.
what it looked like, yeah.
That's Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I played that stuff all the time.
Blend the old with the new. I love it. Bringing it full circle. Are these games on the Ocho, Tanner? They on the Ocho?
No, I did not see where they're on. I just saw the video on X. I don't know. Maybe nobody's purchased the rights to these, you know?
Somebody needs to get in on this, then.
I wouldn't. This doesn't look great.
You don't want to get in on this? I will say I saw that video you're talking about of them running behind the robots.
So funny.
Talk about the weirdest thing ever. Watching dudes running at full speed to get their robot just go a little bit faster than what it typically does.
And then in the soccer one of the robots falls down, so they have to like pick it up and drag it like it's a kicking and screaming kid because it's actually kicking and screaming or not screaming, but it's kicking because it's trying to play soccer.
It's decombusting. It's like. By the way,
literally look just like that.
Give it 3 months and the betting will start on that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I can't. There's people that are there waving flags. Like, I would have no interest. This looks
Waving
painful.
Flags.
Yeah.
Pride.
I did. So they. I don't know if they still do this or not. Somebody on the text line can answer this. They used to have robotics conventions in St. Louis every year at Enterprise Center, and I'll never forget Lindenwood. I was a senior. It was my senior year that they came to me and they're like, "Hey, they want somebody to broadcast these. Do you guys want to do it?" It was me and a buddy of mine. And we were like, well, might as well. Like, why not? And so we went and we did like a TV broadcast for our university of robotics competitions. And I'm like, I don't know how to call robots. And I called it like a fight. And these things are just like, it was like a derby where they're just running into each other.
I was going to say, were they like that or were they like what this one is? Where they're actual like people looking like this punching?
It was like cars or like tanks kind of. And these high school kids would build them from scrap and they would like
I've seen those.
Compute them and make them run. And then they would like go into it and they would fight. And whichever one was still running at the end of 3 minutes would be the winner of it. And so we were calling it like a boxing match. Don't know how it sounded, but from watching it was like, this is impressive.
Ratchet up that excitement, that intensity. I thought, boy, that I had to stretch when doing swimming one time. Robotics? That's impressive,
yeah. No,
Alex.
I've had to do robotics and gymnastics, and
I've done gymnastics.
All credit to the gymnasts out there, but calling it is awful because I was terrible at it, and I probably butchered every single event that they were doing at that gymnastics meet. But we did it. It was about 3 hours, and I hope that they burned that tape somewhere at Lindenwood, so that's not going to find its way out at some point.
It's about the pageantry, too, the time between the routines, filling in the backstory, the gaps. I'm sure you were great.
Yeah, I was terrible. I should have done it like Post Malone and Happy Gilmore, too, and just like, just...
Oh, no spoilers. I haven't seen it.
Oh, God. You got to watch it now, man. You only get one more week of no spoilers, and then people start spoiling it for you. Nope, that's it. T-Bone, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll catch up with Mike McKenna, our former NHL goaltender, and Macadoodle Mike comes next here on 101 ESPN.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com.
I was on a roof the other day and they had 3 inches of water.
Hey, everybody. Mike McKenna here from Macadoodle's Dardine Prairie. We are at the corner of Bryan and Feisey Road out here in St. Charles County. You might know me. I played a little bit of hockey, 14 years pro, goaltender for 9 different NHL teams. I opened the door an awful lot on the bench. And now, hey, what do? I got a liquor store. So some of the exciting things that we have going on out here at Macadoodle's, we have been getting barrel picks in galore. We've got a Maker's Mark barrel pick. We've got a Larceny barrel pick. We had a Buffalo Trace. If you were sleeping on it, I'm sorry, it's all gone. But guess what? We got one coming in next week that's going to be really exciting. So keep your eye on our social media at Macadoodle's Dardine Prairie. Our tequila's taken off lately, too. Just got a whole bunch of G4 in. We had Fortaleza last week. The wine room's going nuts. We're getting all these special releases and these different things that are going to make you excited for summertime. All the canned cocktails you can imagine. Good boy, Surfside, Sun Cruiser, all here at Macadoodle's Dardine Prairie at the corner of Bryan and Feisey Road. We will catch you in a little bit. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and we're going to talk some Blues hockey in the NHL.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Be a part of the show. Text the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Made by Mike McKenna. How do you like me now?
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle's Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Dardine Prairie.
Tell you, our YouTube chat, The Graveyard, was very excited to have Mike McKenna, Macadoodle Mike, back this week. They missed him last week. We missed him last week. So the opportunity now to catch up with our guy, Mike McKenna, former NHL goaltender, who joins us here on BK and Ferrario as we head to the Callier and Thompson hotline. Mike, how are you, buddy? Happy Friday.
I'm a lot better than last week. I'm not on the side of a highway in northern Missouri. So I tell you what, man, you really find out about life when you have something happen, when somebody leaves a trailer hitch in a roadway and you just can't get out of the way of it. And, it made for a really eventful day, but nothing bad happened. You know, like you kind of got to take everything in stride in life, and turned out fine. So otherwise, doing great. Hot as can be. Macadoodle's just hopping on a Friday. What more could we ask for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're glad to hear that you and everyone is safe and okay after that from last Friday. And luckily, hot outside, Mike, but I saw the post that you had yesterday. It's cool inside. It's evaluation time. What's that mean for you?
Yeah, you know, I'm really... When you take 4 or 5 months off of coaching and being around the rink and on the ice, you just crave it. And it's not the fact that I want to be part of a competitive fire and win hockey games and have live through kids vicariously. It's just, I enjoy so much the teaching aspect of being on the ice and being around the other coaches who are doing the same thing. And, you know, with our youth organization, my kids play at Kirkwood. There's just so many people that care. You know, you walk in the building, and whether somebody played high school hockey or youth hockey or somebody played in the NHL, you walk into that coach's room and you're all just trying to find the best fit for every kid that's in your organization. You know, 800 kids in an organization playing hockey in the city. It's so much fun to see. And you always think that after the second session, you're thinking, man, I hope we get this right. I don't know if we have enough sessions. We only have 4. It almost always is by the end. And I tell you, we live and die by the algorithm and by the spreadsheet, man. It's not just 4 dudes in the stand picking teams. So it's cool. I'm just really excited for it to get started. It's my favorite time of the year. You
know, Mike, I'm curious from the player perspective, is this the time of the year where you did start to get that itch, though? Like when you knew training camp was a month away still, but some guys were in town, you were still on vacation, but does the itch kick in now?
Definitely. You know, I didn't really feel it until about a month out from training camp. So by the middle of August is when it wasn't just go time. It was time to really start enjoying the position again, because like as a goalie, you spend a lot of summer, and this is true of all the forwards and now with all the skill work that they're doing, but you spend the summer trying to improve your craft. You spend it trying to find little details that'll make you better and consulting with other coaches and and peers to find little details. Sergei Bobrovsky was someone like that who just, it didn't matter who was on the ice with him, whether that kid was right out of junior or a seasoned veteran, he was always bouncing ideas off of them. I loved working with goalies like that because it made me excited to be at camp and share all that information. So, yeah, about a month out, you start to feel it, and you're not just getting the details anymore. Now you're starting to hit your stride. Now you're getting your stamina back. You're trying to make sure you don't feel like you're going to die out there. I mean, I'm kind of long right now, but I'm going to give you just a quick funny story on that. I finished my career in 2019, and then I went on TV with the Golden Knights in Vegas 3 months later. And I didn't work out at all that summer, guys. Like, I was done, right? This is it. I'm taking my victory lap. I'm eating all the ice cream. I'm eating all the emos. Not that I blew up, but I was not in great shape. But I knew the Golden Knights were going to ask me to bring my gear out there in case they needed a third goalie for practice. And so I bring it out there, and I remember like the second day of training camp, Gerard Gallant comes up to me, and he'd been my coach in Florida previously. He had a big smile. He's like, "Hey, you want to get some reps in?" I was like, "Oh, sure." And man, I hit the ice, and I got to tell you, I thought I was going to need a ventilator. Like, I went 50 minutes, and I went just balls to the wall, like as hard as I could, because I don't know any other way to do it. I regretted that. It was so much fun, but I was so smoked for like 3 days. If they'd asked me to do it the next day, I'm not sure I could have pulled it off.
That's amazing.
Well, Mike, I was going to ask you is, early on in the season, it feels like goaltenders trying to, I don't know if it's catch up with the pace of play, but you typically see offense up a little bit early on in the NHL season. Is that because it takes some time for the goalies just to get back to that flow of pushing off consistently throughout an NHL game, or just readjusting to seeing the shot in a game atmosphere? Why does it feel like it takes a couple games for goaltenders to kind of get back to where they want to be when the season starts?
Well, it's a great question, and there's realness to this. I think it's twofold. One, the game does tend to be chaotic at the start of the year because, and especially training camp, you've got so many bodies in that haven't played under a system. You're still trying to figure out the structure under whoever coach it may be. No team is ever the same year in and year out. There's always players that come and go. But for goalies, it's really your timing. And it always took me every bit of 2-3 weeks before I felt like I was tracking the puck the right way. By the start of the season, I felt good about tracking. But what you cannot replicate in practice is the traffic in front of you. And you just can't replicate killing penalties like you do in a game. That's the hardest part because there's such a mental aspect to what a goalie does when the other team has more players on the ice than yours. You've got to process. You've got to connect the dots. You've got to arrive early. You've got to know what team is featuring a player from a one-timer position, and that changes year in and year out. So you're dead on that it's harder at the start of the season for goalies. I don't think you can judge any goalie until they've played 20 or 25 games in a season, and that's why. Like, it's just so hard to replicate that traffic and penalty kills that you just can't do it in the summertime.
Mike McKenna is with us here on BK and Ferrario. He's joining us on the Calgary and Thompson hotline. Mike, I was listening to a podcast with Jim Montgomery earlier today, and he was talking about, the expectations for the Blues. They're different than what the outside noise is, and Jim kept saying we have high expectations for our team because of how they played last year. If you're the Blues, how high of expectations do you realistically have?
Well, are we talking the players? Are we talking the front office? Are we talking the fans? Because in my eyes,
give me all three.
All three of them have different expectations.
Okay.
The players have the way players are wired, there's no excuses. Win the cup, end of story. And I truly believe that management is in the same boat, that, yeah, we want to win, but I think if you objectively look at the Blues and you look at Holloway, Snuggerud, Neighbors, they're still 1 to 2 seasons away from really seeing the peak of what those players are. And you can toss Broberg in the mix. You can even put Mayu and Tucker in the mix as well. Hofer, who we discussed a couple weeks ago, I think has got the biggest upside anybody on the team is Joel Hofer. The players are going to want to win everything. I think that the front office is probably thinking we are a playoff team as the St. Louis Blues. If we get a couple rounds deep and gain a ton of experience, that's a great year. If we don't make the playoffs, we've failed. If we have an unbelievable season and win the Stanley Cup, we've overachieved. It's going to have to take some magic. It'll probably still take a move or two in season by Doug Armstrong for the Blues to reach that level. But if you're the fans, that's one that it's always so hard for me to identify as, because the fans here expect teams to make the playoffs. We expect the Cardinals in the playoffs every season. Not just in the playoffs. We expect them to win the World Series every year. Let's face it. That's the expectation.
Well, true.
But the Blues, I think that fans just want to see a team that works night in and night out, which they have under Jim Montgomery, and they want to see a team that's in the mix. And so for me, I think the Blues' expectation is that they continue to play hard-nosed, fast-paced hockey that brings wins, and it puts them in the conversation for it. So I actually think the fans are probably closer in line with management than the players who are thinking, that's it, we're going to win it all, we got to do it, this is it, because that's just how you're wired as a player.
And Mike, I want to stick with my theme of going with like the early portion of the season here. The Blues over the last 3 years have gotten off to slow starts. You look at 22-23, they start 11-14, including 3-8 when they lose 8 in a row after starting 3-0. 23-24, first 28 games, they're 13-14-1, and they fire Craig Berube. Last year, 11-12-1, and they fired Drew Bannister after those 22 games, and then they bring in, of course, Jim Montgomery. But the slow start required them to go on the incredible run that they did just to sneak into the playoffs. How do you think they avoid that this season? How do they avoid getting off to a slow start to making that second half such an uphill climb?
Well, I think they already have the template in place because they have the right coach. And please, this is no shade towards Craig Berube or even to Drew Bannister. They're both great coaches. But I do think that Montgomery can be a tactician when he needs to. That's something that, Berube wasn't as strong tactically for me. X's and O's, system work, all that. It was a looser game under Berube than it is under Jim Montgomery. And I think Jim Montgomery has the team play a more upbeat style than what we saw under Drew Bannister. So if the players buy in and do what they're supposed to do, there's no excuses for this. They have the system in place. They have the expectations in place of playing hard, playing fast, and there's some familiarity in the lineup. There has not been big swings or big changes in this lineup for the Blues. You add Suter, you add Bjugstad, you bring in Mayu, who's a big question mark, but otherwise, this is largely the same club. They know what the expectation is. They know they have the skill set. And I think they have a coach that pushes them and motivates them, and that's the X factor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that one. And I'm fascinated to see what a full training camp looks like with a coach rather than somebody who comes in mid-season. Mike, before we let you go, of course, summer winding down, school picking up. What's going on out at Macadoodles?
Well, it's been a fun summer to see what happens out here. We've been open about 9 months at the corner of Bryan and Feisey Road. Canned cocktails, just crazy during the summer. You go to the lake and you've got Good Boy vodka, you've got seltzers and lemonades and all these things. But what's really taken off in our store are these cannabis drinks. And 5 milligram, 10 milligram, 20 milligram, 50 milligram, 60 milligram per can. These are things that people have gone to dispensaries for years now at this point, that they're finding they can get in our store at a lesser dollar point and it tastes better. And you can find anything to fit what you want to do for your day. You don't wake up with a hangover. It's breaking the taboo here, right? Cannabis for years was just taboo. And we're having people come in all the time. Soccer moms. We've got these little packs. They dump a 5 milligram in their Stanley, and they go watch your kid play soccer, and the afternoon's awesome, So it's something that we built up here. We still have barrel picks coming in left and right. But the big exciting thing over the next couple months, Oktoberfest. We've already got Oktoberfest beers in the store. We've already got pumpkin beers in the store. And when those pumpkin spice lattes come rolling on out, I know you're going to want to pair it up with a big old porter from here at Macadoodle. So we're pretty excited, man.
You just spoke T-Bone's language there, Mike. Pumpkin beer, pumpkin spice latte. This is T-Bone Central right now.
We are getting to that time of year, Mike. We are getting to my prime time of year.
It is the place to be for everything that you need. The environment is fun. The people are fun. And, of course, you get to meet Mike McKenna out at Macadoodles. Mike, always appreciate it, man. It's great to talk with you. Glad everything was okay after last Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk next week.
I appreciate it. And just think, we're only a month or month and a half away from being on site. It's going to be great. So cheers, everybody.
Amen to that. We're almost to hockey season. Mike McKenna joining us here on BK and Ferrari. You know, the one thing that he said there that I just want to reiterate, he mentioned Jim Montgomery and his tactics. That's not a shot at Bannister or Berube, but he's right. Berube was never an X's and O's guy. He was kind of a character guy. He was a get the best out of you guy. Drew Bannister was not an X's and O's guy. He tried to be, and I just don't think it worked at the NHL level. Ken Hitchcock, Steve Ott told us on the podcast, is the best X's and O's coach around ever. And Ott told me, like, he talks to him regularly. Hitch talks with Jim Montgomery, and I heard Monty say this on the podcast. Hitch and Monty talk on a weekly basis. They go over things. They prepare for it. Like, Hitch is in that inner circle. He's a analyst for the Blues to where he talks with all of them. That is the part that I'll be curious to see what it looks like, because the last few seasons, you haven't had that in terms of you have to be tactically responsible in the first couple of months because other teams are trying to figure it out, get the feel. The energy, the emotion, that takes over once you get past Thanksgiving and deeper into the season. Those first 2 months are tactics, and that's where Jim Montgomery flourishes.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it there in the interview about, hey, what's it look like when he gets a full training camp? Look what he was able to do in what we called Monty Camp coming out of that Four Nations break, which was what, like
4 days, 3
4
days?
something along those lines. Okay, now he gets a week, 2 weeks to kind of prepare things. You get training camp, you get preseason games. I'm fascinated to see what they look like. And what he said is basically what I said about early on there. I totally agree with him. There's not a lot of significant changes. Like, it feels like you have an idea of what lines are going to look like. The third line's a little bit of a question, and there's some flexibility there. But if we're talking about your third and fourth line as though, okay, what are they going to do? And your top six is kind of unchanged, should be the same group after they left Winnipeg in the playoffs last year, you should be able to avoid this slow start.
Well, and I know they're two different seasons, but look at what happened from 17 to 18 going into the 18-19 season, and they won a cup. But remember how slow they started and the significant changes that they had. And then look at what they did in 2019 start to the season before COVID hit. They started off hot, and it was because it was the same group of guys. Justin Falk was the only player that carried over. So I'll be fascinated to see it. Ott told us on the Last Minute Blues podcast that, like, Monty has had tasks for them throughout the offseason to kind of look at tape and kind of fine-tune some things. I expect the Blues to come out swinging early on in the season, which will be really fun for people with the season right around the corner. And by the way, on the Blues, it was just announced earlier today, the Blues and Brews, that's happening again September 19th at the brewery, where you get to see Blues players, Curbs and Joey, and they announced the band Perry is going to be performing, coming from a country music fan. That's going to be a really cool thing to be at. So ticket information is up on our website at 101ESPN.com. Coming up at 15, we'll get to One's Gotta Go. You send us a scenario, we'll tell you which one has to go. But coming up next, Anthony said something on the fast lane yesterday as I was driving home that kind of perked my ears up. Can the Cardinals use this blueprint with a little bit of a twist to try and get back to where they want to be? We'll discuss that and more next here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. 101 Reward Center is always loaded up with awesome giveaways. And right now, we have your shot to score a pair of Beats Solo 4 wireless headphones.
Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Well, okay, so when Theo Epstein took over for the Cubs, he decided that he was going to draft young position players. That's what he was going to focus on, and he was going to pay for pitching. The Cardinals could really load their farm system with as much young quality pitching as possible, and then trade for that offense. Now, are you going to get a Shohei? No, but that is one at least philosophy, so you're not constantly missing your window.
Could that be the philosophy that the Cardinals can adapt and get this thing back on the tracks faster? That was Anthony Stalter from the Fast Lane yesterday. Those guys are coming up from 2 to 6 today here on 101 ESPN with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. So I'm driving home yesterday, and they of course are opening up talking about the loss to the Rockies and just the core of this team and where it's at and how to get this thing back on track. And it's something that I don't know if I really thought of, because in my mind, T-Bone, I'm just thinking, well, the Cardinals just need to go out there and make a trade for something that makes this team better. Or they need to go out there and sign that big bat. But what Anthony said there, I kind of wonder if that's at least somewhat of the thinking right now with the front office of, look, rather than go out there and try and draft and develop these position players, like we've been doing that, and all we're getting are just complementary pieces. We're getting guys that fill certain spots, but they're not the one that gets us to the next level. But what we did just draft is a 5th overall pick in Liam Doyle, who's got the potential to be a star. We have seen the emergence of Matthew Liberatore, who at the first half of the season, before he hit this wall, looked like a guy that could be a 2 or a 3. We've seen Roby and Quinn Matthews develop in the minor league system. We've seen McGreevy kind of take that step forward. The Cardinals could take this path where they try and draft, develop, and keep loading up on this elite young pitching that could put them in a position to either trade away from the plethora of what they have to go find that star, or do what the Cubs did and say, look, if we're going to spend money, let's spend it on the position player that comes in and provides us 30-plus home runs and 100 RBI to play with the complementary pieces that we have, and just go with draft and develop young stars on the pitching side of things.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, a lot of teams, when you talk about how do they get back to the level that they want to be, what do a lot of fans do? They go back to how they did it previously, right? Like when we talk about how do the Blues get back to where they were when they won the Cup, we talk about the defense. Why? Because that's what they did in 2019. That's how they won the Cup. They were a great defensive team. Same with the St. Louis Cardinals. What do you want to go back to when you talk about the Cardinals? Well, you've got to try and build the way that they did back in 2011. But I like this idea from what Stalter is saying, because it is kind of how they tried to do it the last time around, when they kind of entered into the window of Marcell Ozuna, Paul Goldschmidt, into then the Paul Goldschmidt / Arenado era. Because you think back to 2018 when they make that move for Marcell Ozuna and they make that trade, they had pitching in their pipeline. Because think of the pieces that they gave up in that deal.
We looked at this. They gave up in that deal Sandy Alcantara, and they gave up Zach Gallen. And Alcantara had already pitched the previous season. It was like 7 or 8 innings for the Cardinals. But we looked at this like they had Carlos Martinez, Lance Lynn, Michael Wacha already up at the big league level with Adam Wainwright.
And they had Alex Reyes, Jack Flaherty, Dakota Hudson, Jordan Hicks, Ryan Helsley as in their top 10
Austin
of prospects.
Gomber.
And Gomber was...
I think he was 13th or 14th.
14th in there. Junior Fernandez. Blast from the past.
I remember Junior was supposed to be the next elite closer, and it didn't work.
But even if you go even further down this list real quick, Jake Woodford was a guy that ended up being at the big league level. Johan Oviedo, who is now a Pittsburgh Pirate, they ended up using him and packaging him later on in 2022 to go out and get Quintana. Like, they were a little bit of a pitching factory. Now, it wasn't to the same extent of the Brewers, because, man, what the Brewers are doing is insane. But that was their formula. And Stoltz is right. That's what they should be striving to get back to. Become this pitching pipeline. You start developing a bunch of young cost control arms that help you at the big league level, and then you get such a surplus that you can then use that to go out there and supplement the position group. Maybe you do go out in free agency and you sign a player that helps you there as well. That was their model because that's how they did it. They acquired Ozuna by giving up 2 prized pitching prospects that have become studs at the major league level in Alcantara and Gallen. Yeah. In the Goldschmidt trade, they gave up Luke Weaver. Yeah. Now, he's found his path in a different way by becoming a reliever, but they used Weaver.
But at the time, he was a potential Michael McGreevy in the rotation.
Exactly. And also, even dating even further back before they get to the window of the Paul Goldschmidts, by the way, Gomber in the Arenado trade, they end up using Shelby Miller to go out and acquire Jason Hayward to be their answer out in the outfield. So they had the pitching pipeline there to help them supplement the position players. They did a good job of developing, Matt Carpenter as a guy that I would say, not a superstar, but I'd say probably on that star level for the prime of his career. That's what they got to get back to. They got to get back to this pitching factory because that is the most sought after thing in Major League Baseball right now.
The problem for the Cardinals is, one, they started chasing their tail after that Ozuna one because they got the wrong guy. Like, if you look at that, and I know at the time he wasn't available, but choosing Ozuna over Yelich, it made complete different outcome for the Cardinals because let's say Yelich was the one that they acquired. Well, now you get 2 seasons of MVP caliber player. You get a long-term piece, and I know BK doesn't think he's a star, but he was a star and is still a star, but he's in the outfield for you. He's the bat that we've been talking about, and you get that with the trade of trading away in Alcantara and Gallen. You don't feel like you gave up as much because of how good Yelich was. But after that, you also stalled on the development of your pitchers, or the pitchers just broke, whether it was Reyes or Flaherty or Carlos Martinez hit his wall, or you had the stunted growth of a Dakota Hudson who never really took that next step. Michael Wacha started to deal with injuries. That's the pitching side of it, which can happen. But it always comes back to identifying talent. If you get the wrong guy, then you start chasing your tail. And between identifying the wrong piece and then hitting a stall with your development, you're not catching up with the times, you started chasing your tail and you never got back to where you were.
And to your point on, injuries happen with pitching, if you're also going to the free agent market and needing to spend money, or you're looking the trade route and trying to figure out, okay, how do we supplement our team and try and get better? The position players decide that I'm willing to take that gamble on rather than pitching. Now, I'm willing to hand out the big contracts to pitchers like Rodon, Max Fried, as we talked about earlier, because it's just the business of where baseball is at. You have to do it at some point. But position players are a lot easier, in my opinion, to try and project out. Sure, they may not be exactly like a 10% above league average player for the entirety of the contract, but odds are you're not going to deal with an injury that can really throw everything off. Look at Jordan Montgomery, for example. Did you see Jordan Montgomery having a 6.23 ERA in the one and only year that he was able to do in his contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks? No, but he had injuries. Something went awry for him, and he wasn't the same guy that they paid, Eduardo Rodriguez, who the Diamondbacks paid.
Yeah.
Didn't end up being the guy that you thought he was going to be. Pitching is a very, very difficult business to predict, even with starters. Bullpen arms are really difficult to predict. It's why I say never pay for a closer. It's why I say, hey, Ryan Fernandez, maybe he only had the one good year in him. That's why the Cardinals should have sent him down a little bit sooner early on in this season. Starters are also difficult. So you would prefer to be able to develop those guys internally. That way you don't have to go out and hand out big contracts that can blow up in your face, as we saw in the Steven Matz deal, where that 4-year deal, they really only got one good year out of that contract.
Yeah, well, and speaking of developing pitching, people love us when we talk about Milwaukee Brewers here on this show, but look at what the Brewers have been able to accomplish. You keep churning out pitcher after pitcher after pitcher from internal growth and development, but also identifying the right pieces via trade when they're young or they're not able to capitalize on where they're at. But T-Bone, you told me a wild stat to put into perspective how good the Milwaukee Brewers have been in terms of identifying talent and developing talent.
Yeah, credit Mike Petriel of MLB.com, friend of the show, had a great article today talking about how the Brewers have been able to do this. And I grabbed a couple nuggets here I find fascinating. On the current 26-man roster, do you know how many Brewers players were drafted and developed on that team? On their current 26-man roster.
It's a low number. 3?
Close. 5. 5 players. are currently on their 26-man roster that they drafted and developed. That is tied for the fourth fewest in Major League Baseball. And maybe the most impressive thing, it's been nearly 20 years since Milwaukee used a first-round pick on a player who made an all-star team wearing the Brewers' colors. And even that wasn't straightforward because it was the reliever Jeremy Jeffries who pitched for them 3 other times before finally getting there in 2018. In the last 20 years, the only 5 Brewers draft picks, there have only been 5 Brewers that were drafted in the first round that have been able to accumulate a WAR of 6 in their career with the Milwaukee Brewers. Just for context, Aaron Judge did that in 4 months this season.
Oh my gosh.
And they have not hit at a high rate when it comes to their first round picks. Sound familiar? Sound like the Cardinals at all to you, where they've missed on their first round picks? But the Brewers don't have that as a, well, you know what, we didn't draft, so guess we're just not going to be able to be that team.
We'll have to stick with it until these guys turn out.
Churning and churning and churning
They're
through
aggressive.
that roster, being aggressive to what you always keep saying about them, identifying something that they think they can make work to where they're willing to go out there, take a try on it. Maybe it fails. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you get Priester that's in the rotation having a great year for them. Maybe you go out and you get Vaughn, who all of a sudden looks like Babe Ruth at the plate.
Yeah.
Like, these are the type of things that they're willing to do. They're willing to try it. Even if there's a chance it significantly fails, like they gave up a comp pick for Priester. You know what? Had to do it. We needed to be aggressive. Our pitching was dealing with injuries at the time. We saw one thing we thought could play for him, and it's been a great move for him ever since.
It has. And I mean, it's really what it comes down to. It's something the Cardinals just can't do. They can't identify the right assets that they need for their team and develop it into what makes them successful. Real quick, Continental Courtney texted in, said people are going to say the Ozuna trade wasn't a good trade, but that's BS because without him, you never would have made it to the NLCS against the Nationals. And the only reason that trade looks bad now is because they didn't re-sign Ozuna. I'm not saying the trade was bad at the time because the Cardinals did what they needed to do. They identified the wrong guy. And I don't know how hard they tried after Yelich because, again, he wasn't available, according to the Marlins, until after Ozuna was traded, and then he became available and the Brewers pounced. But you got the wrong guy because the Ozuna trade was supposed to be a core piece of your team for the length of that player's career. Stanton, although he's been bad, has been with one team since that trade. Mm-hmm. Yelich has been with one team since that trade. Meanwhile, Ozuna was here for a bit, didn't perform. Yes, the Cardinals didn't re-sign him, but he didn't perform up to the level that the Cardinals should have re-signed him. And when he went to Atlanta, he emerged as the bat you thought he was going to be for your team. So you just got it wrong. And sometimes that happens, but you can't be afraid to get wrong again. You got to keep trying until you get it right.
Yeah, and that goes to what BK has said a lot, right? It's more about the process than it is the result.
Yes.
You're right. Their process was right. They needed a middle-of-the-order bat. Did they give up a lot in that trade? You know, one guy won a Cy Young. So
yeah, but look at him now. What's he doing now?
That's fair. You know, I think Ozuna's not here, so but the process was right. The problem for the Cardinals is I think they ended up becoming too shy, especially after the Arozarena trade. I don't think it was the Ozuna trade that really scared them away. The Arozarena one is the one that it feels like you can pinpoint to. Okay, this is when they started kind of the hoarding of prospects of, okay, we got to hang on to these guys, And then by the time they realize, okay, it's time to trade them, you're trading them for nothing. Look at Carlson. Look at Tyler O'Neill. So, yeah, I think their process was right. The results just didn't go their way, but you have to keep trying those moves.
Yeah, absolutely. Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll hit the rewind in a bit, but coming up next, you send us scenarios. We'll tell you which one has to go. One's got to go on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Now at 101ESPN.com.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends over at Rhino Shield. You heard me talk about the A1 storage units that are getting redone by Rhino Shield right behind that pink elephant on 141 around my neck of the woods. Well, Darren has sent me some progress pictures, and let me tell you, going from a building with nothing to looking brand new. And that's what they are about, changing the outlook of the exterior of your business or your home. A lot of businesses around the area, Fallon, Missouri, Autotech Auto Center just used Rhino Shield's work. Also Also, Darren was telling me that they were taking a 100-year-old steel metal Lutheran church in Campbell Hill, Illinois, and make it look brand new. So if you've got an older-looking business or an older-looking home, you need to give it that facelift, and Rhino Shield comes into play. It's 100% waterproof with their ceramic coating. It sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any paint you're going to buy at the hardware store, and saves you a little money on energy bills because it deflects 90% of the UV rays. All backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. Call Darren today, have him come out, give you a quote, walk him through everything for you. Just tell him Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
At Arctic Spas, hot tubs, and all-weather pools, they understand the importance of rest, relaxation, and recovery.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Yanks getting into St. Louis. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Aaron Boone's Yankees have lost 8 of 12 games entering tonight's series opener against the Cardinals. First pitch scheduled for 7:15 downtown. STL starter Andre Pallante working through his own struggles. Last Saturday, number 53 recorded only 5 outs. This weekend, NFL preseason action resumes on 101 ESPN. Chargers-Rams getting underway shortly after 6 tomorrow. Mizzou will also conduct a closed practice at Lindenwood University. Your Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big pen.
314-399-9646, Air Comfort Service text line, YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. It's time for One's Gotta Go, a Friday staple here on BK and Ferrario. You give us options, we'll tell you which one has to go. So we wind things down on a Friday edition of BK and Ferrario. Let's start with this one. One's Gotta Go college football quarterback edition. Joe Burrow, Tim Tebow, Vince Young, Cam Newton.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Good luck getting rid of any of those.
So, for me, I think I'd go Vince Young, and it's only because I have literally no memory of him. I can kind of remember Tim Tebow. I remember Joe Burrow. That was unbelievable. Same with Cam Newton. I remember Cam Newton. The only one that I just don't know is Vince Young, because when he was playing college football, I think I was like 2,
It was
3.
elite. It was elite. I would get rid of Joe Burrow, and here's why. I don't remember much of the Ohio State Joe Burrow. I remember everything about the LSU Joe Burrow. The Ohio State one, I remember all 3 years of Vince Young. I remember all of Tim Tebow, and I remember all of, who was the fourth one on there? Oh, Cam Newton. Cam Newton was elite. Like, I love that 2019 team that he was a part of, but man, the other three quarterbacks, in my opinion, were just must-watch television.
Honest to goodness, this could be one of the best nominations we've had in this category. This is so difficult to dig through. Burrow had one of the all-time great offenses in college football that year for LSU. He was transcendent. His supporting cast was transcendent. Vince Young was so great for that run, going head-to-head against Matt Leinart and USC. My goodness, begrudgingly, I'm actually going to say, now, he was phenomenal, okay? But Cam Newton probably, if we have to cut one, for as great as he was, both sides as far as running the football, passing it down the field, you can't take away the championship pedigree and what Tebow was able to do with less athletically. So college football-wise, my goodness, we're splitting hairs here. I guess I go with Newton. That's impossible.
Do you know Newton was at Florida for his first 2 years? I did not know that.
I did not either. I
remember that too.
I just remember Newton being a physical freak wherever he was.
I remember being awesome at Auburn.
Yeah.
I did not realize that he transferred from Florida.
I guess all of them have had those moments where you don't remember, because Vince Young wasn't good that first year, but it was still, you saw the skill set of it, and you were like, hot damn, if this guy could just get going with this one.
Tebow basically stayed home, so that added to the aura.
Yeah, Tebow was probably at the top of that list no matter what. From the 314, one's got to go bathing edition. Wash, bath, or shower? I'm assuming wash means just like one of those, like, put a rag under a faucet and wipe yourself down with it. I'm assuming that's what that means. It says wash up, bath, or shower.
Isn't that a sponge bath, though?
Ooh.
Washing?
Yeah, get rid of that
area?
Yeah, I'll get rid of wash. That one was easy for me. That one wasn't like the college football one.
Don't get me wrong, man. I don't like baths.
I don't either,
nasty.
but I don't think I need a
I think I'd rather do a bath, though, than a sponge bath. Do that even feel like you get it done?
No.
And then you nasty people are going to do a sponge bath and probably not change your sheets for a week and a half.
As a guy that's had 2 surgeries and had to do the sponge bath while you're there overnight, no thanks, I'm out.
This is about as comfortable as the pacifier conversation.
One's got to go Ferrario's least favorite things edition. Washing his sheets, West Coast Blues games, or listening to BK rants. Those are really good ones. I hate West Coast Blues games, like with a passion. It's nothing more infuriating than starting a game it's supposed to be at 9, but then they're like, oh, hey, we got this thing before we dropped the puck.
Ceremony
so starting
or something.
at 9:35. Like, what the hell are we doing? I despise BK rants, and I don't mind washing the sheets. I like cleanliness. I think I'd have to get rid of West Coast Blues games. I would listen to an entire day of BK ranting over having to do hockey games that start at 9:30 at night. The 9:30 starts, my God, they're really 9:40 starts. So you're talking 1:30 in the morning before the game's even over.
Yeah, see, I like Blues hockey too much. I mean, I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Blues.
You just hate.
I don't want dirty sheets, so.
Got to get rid of BK then. I get it. Yeah, Bradford, you hate BK, right?
It's not personal.
I'm going to refrain from this conversation.
There's just better options.
Let it be known that Bradford did say he despises BK for Monday's show when you guys are all together.
That is nonsense. He invited me into the football.
From the 312, Warren in Chicago over here. One's got to go trade in the offseason. Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson. Meaning, I guess, that player is traded away.
Mm-hmm. I think it is Nootbaar for me.
It's got to be Nootbaar, right?
Yeah, so Burley, Ollie says he's an everyday player. He's locked himself into that. He's earned that. There's still things I want to see from him here in the second half. Like, he can't struggle consistently in the second half like he did last year. Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar are kind of the same profile, get on base, but Donovan hits for average. Even though he's going to be in a tough spot because of the Weatherholt situation where he's coming up, he's got flexibility, which makes it a little bit easier to stomach that. So I think it's Nootbaar. And Nootbaar's a good player, but he's just got too much redundancy. And you've now got Herrera that's becoming an outfielder. Burley's becoming an outfielder. Walker's still in the conversation.
Playing well.
Yeah, and you're not going to play Newton center. They're doing it now just to get him at bats, but he's not really a center fielder, so I'd say it's Nootbaar.
Yeah, I think it's Nootbaar as well, because then on top of it, you can't move on from Nolan Arenado. You want to get Weatherholt in the lineup. You're going to have to probably play him at second base if Arenado's here. Brendan Donovan then is potentially an outfielder for you or a super utility piece. So I think the obvious one, the easiest one, would be Lars Nootbaar here.
Yeah, it's Lars Nootbaar now. It was Lars Nootbaar personally for me before the beginning of the season. That's right, prior to what we saw in the first half of 2025, because once again, the durability factor, it always seems to rear its its ugly head. And I understand what the splits are, but I also feel that much more confident in the presence of a Burleson, especially against right-handed batters as a middle-of-the-order guy for you moving forward.
From the 636, one's got to go. Stupid reasons to party edition. A wedding shower, a baby shower, New Year's Eve, housewarming.
Do people do housewarming parties?
I have never been to one, and that is the stupidest out of all of these.
They do. Not saying I've attended either.
Yes, I didn't even know that was a thing. I knew the other two.
I'm going to get in front of this before I did say stupidest. Yeah. I did do that on purpose. I'm just going to get in front of this before everyone's like, Ferrario said stupidest. I did it on purpose. Housewarming makes zero sense to me. And look, I despise baby showers and New Year's Eves. I don't see the point of a party for New Year's Eve. I like the idea of just being at home.
You don't see the part of
baby shower?
No, a party in general.
No, that's not true. I get the wedding shower party. My wife did that one. That's fine. The baby shower is fine on the first one, but people that have it for like 5 kids, that's the one I'm like, why? Maybe I'm being too mean there. Bradford's looking at me like, I can't believe you just said that.
No. Respectively, I was wondering, actually, I'll just say it out loud. Can we throw gender reveal festivities into
that was
this
the other
pile,
one.
too?
That was the other one. We had one, and then we were like, okay, we're fine.
What did you guys do?
We did. It was our first. It was for Adelaide that we had at our house. My sister put it together.
Anything.
Yeah, I don't even know if I posted it because I know people are weird with baby reveals, but we just did it because it was our first one. My sister did like one of those boards where you throw darts and they're blown up balloons, and then one of the balloons is confetti.
Gotcha.
It was embarrassing because my wife and I couldn't hit any of the damn balloons, and there was 9 of them. And so finally,
they had to go get the darts and bring them back.
Yeah, we did. We did. We had to go pick up the 6 that we threw and go back and pick them up. And finally, I just ran up and popped every one of them. So, yeah, that's where that one goes. From the 618, one's got to go. Texier, Joseph, or Sundquist? I think it's Joseph. I'd keep Sundquist. I wouldn't get rid of it all. I'd keep Texier over Joseph because of the offense potential. Like, not saying that what Joseph doesn't bring provides, or what provides is a lot, because I do think he provided a lot in the locker room. But I think the upside of Texier's offense is something that Jim Montgomery can see as a third-line potential option, whereas Matthew Joseph, I think it's fallen into a fourth line or nothing. And my options right now, because he only can play wing, is Toropchenko, Walker on the wing, and I'd rather have one of those two before Joseph.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Joseph's the one that's got to go because of the offensive upside of Texier. Sundquist, I mean, he's your fourth-line center. He's not going anywhere. He's got the role. He can play on the penalty kill as well. I think it's Joseph. I think it's a toss-up between Joseph and Texier, but I would lean towards Joseph. Joseph's the one that's got to go.
I think it's most definitely Joseph in this case because we saw him actually, guys, twice as often last season, whereas with Texier, there is that offensive upside maybe on which you can still dream. Not sure he gets to 30 games this season, though.
This one got me from the 816. Grandma showers are a thing now for when you become one, not your grandma in the shower. I appreciate them elaborating on that one because when I read the first text, I'm like, grandma showers? What are we talking about there? That's where they were going with it. And I'm glad that they made sure that
you would enjoy that.
Cleared that one up. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll rewind it next as we wrap up and head into the weekend here on BK and Ferrario.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN tomorrow. Mets and Mariners. First pitch at 3:10. Then Sunday it's Game 2. First pitch at 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Let's rewind it here on BK and Ferrario as we close it down on the weekend. If you missed anything from the show today, conversation with Brad Thompson, conversation with Macadoodle Mike, some hockey Cardinals talk along the way. You can check it all out on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com after the show. Podcast, of course, brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. Over on the 101 ESPN app, you could check out all three of the shows on 101 ESPN, and you can check out the most recent podcast, Redbird Report, that T-Bone and BK did, and the interview that we had with Steve Ott on the Last Minute Blues podcast. And the 101 ESPN app brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. And, of course, the YouTube channel, 101 ESPN STL, studio cams by the Air Alliance team. T-Bone, should be an exciting series over the weekend with the Yankees in town. Probably not as exciting as Cardinals fans would it like to be. But more importantly, you look at the pitching tonight with Andre Pallante, who still has stuff to prove before the end of this season.
Yeah, I don't think he's a lock for the rotation going into 2026. He's going to have to cut down on his walk issues, and he's going to have to see if he can get batters out. 843 OPS against him. I think he's pitching for an opportunity to lock himself into that 2026 rotation, and he's got a crucial final month and a half here in the season.
Yeah, and I saw the lineup is out. We won't spoil the lineup game for people because the Fast Lane is going to play that, but it's a lineup as you would expect. So we'll see kind of what it can do against this Yankees team, and you can wait to find out that lineup game once the Fast Lane gets underway. Huge shout-out to Bradford Bruns. Did a great job filling in for us these last couple of days. T-Bone and BK and Bradford will be with you all next week. I'm out, so I'll see you in 2 weeks. Enjoy the weekend. Fastlane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast